Welcome to People Talking Sitting Down.
My point of view is like there's so many animals now and less veterinary professionals.
Yeah. And can you explain why that's happening? Because we touched on
It's
it.
burnout, man. I mean, we have one of the higher burnout rates, and a lot of it has to do with just the demand. I mean,
Even again, hearing your stories it's emotionally taxing.
I try not to be so black and white. I do have to advocate for the animal before the person. It's hard because if an owner's like, yes, 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 it's like you kind of have to honor that. And the owner straight up told me, I don't want to pay for surgery because I just got a puppy and I don't want to spend that money. This dog would have been alive. And I didn't know I had the ability to say no for that euthanasia. I think about that dog almost every day.
Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
How we doing?
We're doing all right. How
Yeah.
about you, man?
I'm good. The last couple ones we did, we recorded a couple at night, so it was a different vibe.
Yeah.
And it's nice to be doing it back in the morning because my brain dies.
Yeah.
At night.
I'm a big morning person.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm like ready to get stuff out of the way. And then if I have time later in the day just to do nothing, I definitely try to get into bed pretty early now.
Yeah. You were just saying, what's your morning schedule?
Yeah. I mean, part of it's my cat. He tends to get us up at like 4:30. But it just depends on my shifts. Like I'll end up going to the gym sometimes at 5 in the morning, 4 in the morning, but typically around 6 a.m. But I time it with work because the gym's not too far from work.
Yeah.
So it changes.
So when do you start work?
We have different shifts. I mean, I average about 33 hours a week. Some weeks it might be 2 shifts, and the next week it might be 4. But we kind of average out like 13 shifts a month. Some of it's like 7 to 5. Some of it's 12 to 10. Sometimes it's 8:30 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. So it just depends.
Wait. So
I'm doing ER.
you might have only so you might
Yeah.
only have 2 shifts a week.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the other week I only had like 1 shift, and then the next week I had 4. So it just, it's different every week. We try to maintain like an 8-week rotating schedule. And we try to link them up kind of in groups. I don't mind kind of working one day off to working another I'm kind of flexible that way. But yeah, like this week I worked, Monday, Tuesday, Friday, and then I'm off for the rest of the week. So yeah, it's kind of nice.
That's a chaotic schedule.
Yeah, it gets a little, yeah. You kind of get normalized to it. I kind of like it, it's a little variability, but I don't, I got used to working on some weekends, when I was working at 2 different hospitals at the same time. I was doing most weekends as well as a full week. So you kind of just get used to it. It's part of the gig.
Yeah. That's, I had no idea. I was about to ask, I was like, what's your routine? Your Monday through Friday?
I try to normalize it as much as I can. I got to hit the gym. I have developed maybe a negative relationship with, off days, but I'm sort of trying to force myself to kind of take those because everybody needs them. But I always try to get the gym out, in the morning. Then I work, and then I kind of just come home and do, most of the time just try to decompress for a short period of time and then start all over again.
Yeah.
And then the weird thing is, if I have an off day on a Tuesday, nobody else is off. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, I'm just going to kind of do my thing. And most of the time it's just kind of, chilling, most of the time cooking, grocery shopping, catching up on some random stuff. But that's kind of the tough part is it's nice to have the weekends off because obviously everybody else has off. But during the week, if nobody's off, I kind of just, have some time to myself, which is nice.
Yeah. I was gonna say you probably spend, cause that's one of the things that I was most interested in talking about was the come down of what you're doing. And I didn't realize that you were in the emergency room.
Yeah, I switched. Yeah, when I did my clinics at Wisconsin, I started to, for some reason, really enjoy ER. I never thought that I would do emergency. I always planned on doing general practice, which is like family medicine. So, going to your primary vet. And then I took it once at Wisconsin. I was like, I like this pace. I kind of like the variability of not knowing what's coming in.
Yeah.
You just learn so much on the fly. You're kind of just like, you don't kind of see some of that same stuff on a GP basis just because most of those hospitals can't, take that kind of stuff. And then I took it a second time at Wisconsin. I was like, I really like this. But kind of coming up through, getting my hours and stuff for vet school application, I started working at my family's vet, and my parents have known them for years, like 20 some years. And I started shadowing in high school. So my plan was always to go back there. Started out as a kennel boy. Then I started.
What is that?
Like just cleaning kennels, like, you know,
Okay.
doing, you know, food, cleaning up, you know, it's not necessarily the prettiest job, you know, animals
Yeah.
kind of do it, you know, most of the time it's vomiting and diarrhea when they come in the, you know, hospital. But, so that kind of stuff, you know, laundry, you know, maybe restraining some animals, kind of doing some stuff that doesn't really have, you know, a whole lot of medical aspect to it. But then I started, you know, over the summers getting trained to kind of be a technician. So then you start doing like blood draws and, you know, catheter placements and dealing with surgery and stuff like that. So I already knew I was going to go back there after, you know, vet school. Like that was my plan.
So did you go to college for this?
Yeah. Yeah. So you have to get an undergrad degree. I mean, you just have to get your prereqs done. Like some of the kids I went to vet school with didn't even graduate undergrad. They just got their science prereqs and then just said, I'm going right to vet school.
Okay.
You could have an art degree. You can have a music degree. Like you can have any degree you want as long as you have your prereqs done. Most people go into like a veterinary biomedical science or an animal science or some biology degree just to kind of get that science background. But you have to take those science prereqs, you know, so you're gonna get that exposure anyway.
Yeah.
Then you have to apply to vet school, and then you get 4 more years of vet school. And then if you wanted to specialize, you often need to do like a 1 or multiple internships, you know, depending on what specialty you want to go into. And then different specialties, like you can be a cardiologist, you can be a neurologist, you can do critical emergency care. You can do ophthalmology. So you have all of the specialties, but you typically need to do at least another 3 to 5 years beyond vet school after that, on top of 1 or 2 internship years.
So you went to college. You got,
Yep.
because you went to a 4-year.
Yeah, we went to Penn State.
Yeah.
We played basketball at Altoona for 2 years because we couldn't quite give up the sports life, realizing that really at the end doesn't really matter. You know? But so we did that for 2 years, and then I kind of just said, you know, I've always loved animals, you know, growing up, you know, with horses, dogs, cats. I mean, it's just the exposure. It was nuts. We would have 12, 15 animals at a time.
Yeah.
Right? So, and there was just always something that, you know, I gravitated toward animals. You can't really put my finger on it. You know, you're kind of just one of those things you just know. You know, I think most people, if they kind of really, truly find what they want to do, they kind of have the same sort of sensation. You're like, I just know this is what I got to do. But I never thought I could do it. You know, everyone kind of tells you, hey, it's, you know, it's so hard to get into vet school. I think there's only 30 of them, you know? Really? So, I mean, in Pennsylvania, there's probably 30 plus medical schools, right? Or at least close. But in the entire country, there's 30 vet schools, and 2 of them are actually new. So I think there was about 28. So it's just competitive, you know? So everyone's like, hey, you know, if you don't have perfect grades, perfect this, perfect that, you're not going to get into vet school. And then my dad was kind of like, hey, if you don't give this a try, you're going to regret this.
Yeah.
And like my grades were not good, you know, playing basketball, you know, it's kind of like, you know, maybe 3,500, maybe 5,000 kids, you know, so once, you know, you're on the basketball team, you know, you kind of get, you know, you have those parties, you know, that's kind of what everybody cares about. We also played lacrosse there. So like we kind of had both sports going. Yeah. So,
and for those that don't know, while you're saying we,
Sean
has a twin brother.
Normally it comes with one other plus one. Yeah. So, but then like, you know, my grades were not good, you know, so then I was like, what if I actually try, you know? And that's kind of when some flip kind of switched. I like Ryan then would have a house party and I would be in the library. Like it didn't happen a lot, but it definitely would be like, I'm avoiding this kind of stuff and trying to learn how to study and do that stuff. Cause looking back at high school, I mean, I don't think I studied once, to be honest with you.
And that's the thing is like, once you catch that feeling of what you're supposed to be doing in life or what you're like naturally drawn towards.
Right.
I think things start to change. I didn't realize that it happened. And for me, it's just happened recently. So like,
for sure.
I mean, I think back and I'm like, dude, in college, like, what was I doing? What was I like? I wish. And now it's funny for me. It's all the things that I was so not interested in college. Like I remember taking a philosophy class. I'm like, what do these guys? And now I'm like reading philosophy books.
Yeah.
And it's just like, you know, when you catch the interest, it's a nice thing to be able to like.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I know, you know, maybe a lot of people maybe tolerate their job or they're like, hey, it pays the bills or, you know, it's this, that, and the other, but it's like who truly enjoys their job.
And you
like,
truly enjoy yours.
I do, you know, even on like some of these worst days where it's like, what the heck was that? You know, like, why do I do this to myself? It's like, I still at, you know, some level, I'm like, I love this. Yeah. And it's, you know, you can call it passion, you can call it whatever you want, but it's like, you know, I'm lucky to have found it, you know, and no matter what it comes with, I'm okay with, or I'll deal with it, you know?
So is that and I didn't know coming in here that you were in the emergency room, and now my entire like outlook on it has changed. Cause that's an entirely different adrenaline pumping, chaotic, just intense situation. It makes like, I relate it when I think about, you know, my friends and what they're doing. It's like how I knew you as a kid.
Sure.
And it's like these things start to make sense because you're a competitive guy who had had something within you that would come out on the lacrosse field sometimes. Where
a lot of that was probably due to Ryan too.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, I think that's probably where it stemmed from, just because, you know, the comparison nature of being a twin that does the same exact stuff every second.
Before we get deep into the vet stuff and everything, your life with animals, tell me about growing up with a twin, because not only are you twins, but you're like some of the, especially growing up, it was hard to even tell you apart.
Yeah, people still have a hard time doing it, you know, which is fine. I mean, I think it's like, come on, there's pretty big differences now, but yeah, that my answer has always evolved. You know, that's changed. And like Ryan recently getting married, I kind of said some stuff in my best man speech. Like in the beginning, I didn't realize how special it was, you know, and it's like, we were always compared. Somebody had to be better, no matter what it was. Who's faster? Who scored more points? Like I'm like, why does everything have to be, you know, comparison? And at that point, it's like, that's all we cared about, you know, like who's stronger, who's faster, who's doing this, like, and you know, you just get that competitive nature, but it was just exhausting. And then it turned into like, we would get in fights. You know,
I remember that.
Multiple, you know, and I mean, like, it just was like nonsense looking back on it. You know, I mean, a lot of, you know, every family, every brother fights, you know, at some point, but like I got my nose, you know, straightened after, you know, breaking it third time in basketball. And like 3 days later, he punched me in the nose because we got in a huge fight. And it's like, why did we do that? And it was just, we were so competitive. But then kind of looking at it, like we went to Penn State together, we did everything together. I think the difference is you get some twins that may kind of stray off and do some different things. Maybe they're not into different things, so they may not get that comparison. I mean, we did everything. Basketball, lacrosse, same friends. And then even through college, basketball, lacrosse, we roomed together, you know, so it's just like every step of the way he's been there. So in that sense, as we've gotten like older and closer, it's like, he's probably one of my best friends, you know, same with Chris, same with Delaney. You know, it's like I always have somebody to lean on, right? And that's like my whole family, which, you know, I'm blessed that way too. And Alexis, you know, this is my major support system. So, you know, with Ryan, it's like we're super close. We're into the same stuff. We can, you know, talk about, you know, whatever we want to talk about. We're into the same stuff, minus the fact that I can't listen to his business stuff and he cannot listen to my, you know, vet stuff. So at least that's like the difference. And I think that's where we kind of got a little, you know, we strayed away, which is nice. You know, we finally have our own different professions. And that way it's like, we're not, you know, who's an exec now, who's got this promotion.
You're in completely different worlds.
Yeah. Before I wanted, you know, to be a vet, I was just going to say, I'm going to go work for my dad, you know, whatever that was, you know, it was easy. You know, I could get a job. I didn't have to think about it. And we probably would have been compared to each other the entire way. And it's like, how do you give one a promotion over the other? Like, it's just like, if that would have happened, maybe we'd be probably beefing a little bit more, but no, we hang out all the time. He's closer now. You know, he's living that married life. So, you know, it's a little different.
Growing up fast.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny. Like I thinking back to it because again, my younger brother being a year and a half younger, we went through the same kind of fight stuff, but we were always, you know, different. We were always like noticeably, and some people thought we were like closer in age or twins, or like no, like and now we're very, very different, but there's still a lot of similarities. And like I think about when I was thinking about you being a twin, like if I had to deal with myself, I would be freaking out. Like I'd be so annoyed with myself. But like you have somebody who's almost mirroring a lot of, especially growing up before you start changing, before you start finding your differences, before you start finding your own lane. You have somebody who's mirroring everything that you do. Right. And again, like you said, being in the same friend group. Even if thinking about it, like sixth grade, crushes on girls, you know what I mean? Like all those things you're going through, and you have somebody who's like, I mean, a twin's as close as you can get to you in the world.
100%. Yeah, it's definitely a wild concept. And I mean, I always had like a BS funny answer. Like, I don't know what it's like not to be a twin, right? Yeah. But like now it's like, looking back, it's like that kid pushed me to get to this point. You know, like whether I liked it or not, whether, you know, he, you know, got male athlete of the year, like he always seemed to top me in a lot of stuff. So it's like, maybe that's why I got an extra degree. Be like, hey, I got you here. You know, but it's like, I genuinely don't think that I would have developed any sort of skills or anything like that, or that whatever it may be, without him or anybody else that, you know, was in that close inner circle. Yeah. So, you know, that in that sense, it's like, you know, it's something, it's a bond that I'm like, you know what, this is something most people don't get to experience. And there's some twins that aren't even close.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'm lucky to have, you know, someone like that. If, you know, all else fails, he's right there.
Yeah.
You know, so that's kind of the, you know, the blessing in it. And at the same time, it's like, you know, at this point, I think really like the fact that we're into a lot of stuff. Like I was texting him, I was listening to a podcast that, you know, I was getting kind of fired up about, and then, you know, walking into your apartment, and kind of, you know, but you know, I get to just talk to him about that stuff, and we just go off.
Yeah.
And it's kind of just like that kind of stuff, which
and
is
the fact
nice.
that there's always somebody to call and always somebody there, and like just a built-in, like you said, like a built-in kind of like best friend.
Yeah.
And it's also interesting. You guys are the oldest in your family.
Yeah.
You're the like.
And he'll let everybody know that he is 2 minutes older. It's just, I'm gonna air that out because it's just what he
It's
does.
so funny with twins that's still, it's like it always comes up. My sister is married to a twin, and same thing.
And that's a small world. Yeah, I know the Cocos since I was little.
That's
right.
My
dad's best friends with his dad.
That's
right. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
World. Yeah, and God, what they're both great guys.
Yeah.
But they don't look. I mean, they're I guess identical twins, but they don't at this
They're
point.
not
They don't,
super. Yeah,
you can tell
at this point. You can definitely tell. Like
Yeah.
it's. I mean, my mom still gets like it wrong. You know, and it's like, you know, Alexis's mom sometimes gets it wrong.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll say this: like Molly on her wedding day thought I was right.
Somebody told that story.
And I'm like, listen, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Like, come on now.
That's too funny.
You know, so she'll get mad that I said that. But yeah, you know, it's always just like, come on. I think, you know, at this point we have a little bit of different personalities.
Yeah.
You know, we're into very similar stuff, but at the same time, you know, we kind of do our own thing all at the same time. So I'm a little shocked when people are like, who are you?
Yeah.
Like,
And that's the funny thing. I think that you guys are so, and again, I spent a lot of time around, we grew up all playing lacrosse together, and I pretty much lived at your house for many weekends in between games, running around the
100%.
farm, ATVs, like ripping it.
We got into some stuff.
Yeah. And like you said, you know, those fights with Ryan, like I was there, and I remember just being.
We didn't hide it. That was the other thing. It's like, dude, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
Which is fine, but it's like, I think at some point we might have been known for kind of fighting each other, and it's like, that's not cool.
Yeah.
Like, why? That's not.
And you were
so,
but you were. It feels like at the same time, while having all of the same interests, you were so different. You were so wired. Like Ryan had this mellowness to him, and you had this intensity. Again, like I said, that came out on the lacrosse field, where it was like.
Yeah.
And then Ryan, I feel like once he got kind of like later into high school, got like a little bit more of that mean streak, kind of like could.
Yeah, he had it. Yeah, I think I'm definitely a little bit more dogmatic than he is. You know, I always like to get the last word, and like even like if you know. We get into some stuff like he definitely acts like my dad, which isn't a bad thing. You know, it's just like one Penn State game, we were at the whiteout and some guy was really starting to press me for no reason. And then like Ryan was yelling at me, like, you're going to get kicked out. And it's like, it's okay.
Yeah.
Like, let's relax. So yeah, no, he definitely a little bit. And I'm always kind of quick to, you know, a little, maybe a shorter fuse, but something I've, you know, worked on probably for a while. I don't typically do that anymore.
That's what I was going to say after we talk about the vet stuff. I think that there's also been an interesting, I don't want to say transformation because that's a little bit extreme.
Yeah.
But again, you're like, we all grow up, we have different interests, and we like realize what matters, what doesn't. And I feel like there's been a lot of that. Because I remember seeing you after not seeing you for a couple of years. Like, whoa, Sean's like,
it was a lot of people. Yeah.
So chill. Like, you know, again, like,
I don't know when that happened. You know, I think, you know, during college, I got a lot of, you know, the heavy drinking, you know, all that good stuff out of the way.
Yeah.
And then once I kind of went through vet school, it's like you have to create a discipline to kind of do what you got to do.
Yeah.
It was a little different kind of, you know, doing vet school on the island, you know, that's an experience in itself. But like just traveling to, you know, a third world country, you know, kind of learning how to do all that at the same time going through vet school and getting a whole new friend group. You know, it's like, I think at that point, I just started realizing what I cared about, and that, you know, ended up being like, you know, what I'm eating, you know, working out, that kind of stuff, and just overall not being, you know, just trying to be helpful for people.
Yeah.
That obviously, like, you know, I'm going to extend that hand, but, you know, sometimes people take that for granted. So it's like, you know, at that point I realized I don't need a big circle. I just, you know, I'm okay with me, but I know it will never just be me. So that's, I think, been a relief to where it's like, I can take that part out of it. And if it's just me and, you know, Alexis, my sister, my brothers, my parents, you know, my close friends, it's like, if I just have them, I'm good.
Yeah.
But everybody else after that is bonus.
Yeah.
You know, obviously doing different things and starting the profession and stuff like that, you start developing, you know, some different friendships. I'm friends with a lot of guys at the gym. So it's like, you just start adding to it. But yeah, I think at that point, vet school, I think really kind of probably settled me down a little bit. And even when I really had to kind of buckle down at Penn State, I think that's sort of when it was like, let's create a discipline. Let's, do what you got to do, work ethic, whatever you want to call it. And then it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, we were joking earlier about like, we're adults, but are we like, we're, it's
I don't want to use that youth. Yeah. I don't want to lose that youthful side, but like, I just had my birthday not too long ago. It's like, I'm almost 30, it's like, at what point do I actually start believing that like I need to adult? And then especially, with my job, it's like, I try to do the opposite. Like even Molly's mom, when I treated her cat, she's like, Sean's really professional in the, vet setting. And Molly's like, I don't see how you're a doctor. I'm like, you know what? That stigma, you don't have to be, walking around like with your chest held high and like acting like you're better than anybody if you have, that title.
Yeah.
It's just like when I'm not in the work setting, I want to be whatever. I want to be a goon. I want to just lay on my couch. I want to just do whatever I feel like doing. And I want, be goofy. It's like, why would I continue to be that professional? Like I got to do what I got to do all hours of the day. Like, that's not fun at all. Yeah. But my definition of fun is definitely a lot different now too. Like, I don't like to party. I don't like to drink. Yeah. But then, some people might view that as boring or simple. It's like, then it just gets deeper with like, the health aspect and like all this other stuff. So it's like, I'm just comfortable with how I enjoy doing what I do in my day to day. And if things change, I'm ready to, kind of go that route too.
Yeah.
That's, I think the nice thing is we fit into this norm of like what people should be doing all the time. It's like, just do what you enjoy.
Yeah. And
whatever that is.
We talked about like not being on social media. I think that's something that, again, after not being on social media for a while myself and then getting back onto it, it's just your brain's infiltrated with all of these things that may or may not matter. And your brain can't really separate the two. No. Because if it's getting just as much, your brain is giving just as much attention to what your friends are doing or what's happening across the world, it's confused. It thinks you're a little bit more involved in these things than you are.
100%.
And as we were talking about on the elevator up, like everything that's going on with the world, and like I get worked up about it. And like I've gotten, and then it's like these conversations are a reminder of like, what can you do? Right. What is the right thing to do? Right. I don't even know. Like the onslaught of information. I keep using this analogy of like, it feels like all of our brains, we have like a tank of 100 and it feels like everybody gets to the top and then you kind of start like, the short circuiting and like, there's nothing else that I can't get anything else in there to get other things in there. As you're talking about, even the kind of like with friends and stuff like that, like you have to remove certain things from your life to add certain things. Correct. You can't just keep adding. It doesn't work.
And not everybody can come along the way, whatever that is. And whatever's important to you, whether that's, spending more time with friends and family, then you got to do that. If you want to be more financially you're more successful, whatever your definition of that is, and you got to make some sacrifices. Some people might not come along on the ride. Yeah. And it's also like surrounding people with, your mindset, like-minded mindset, or just genuinely good people, find what you value.
That's the thing that I'm learning with all of this. Again, like there's been times where we haven't seen each other for 5 years probably. And that's like, I caught up with, do you know Jake Scott played at Conestoga?
The name sounds familiar.
So we played Penn Star together, and he was a legend. He was the behind the back king. I haven't seen him in 10 years, and he might come on in a couple of weeks. And we were catching up just over text. It's like nothing's changed. Right. We're still like, and like when I see people that I haven't seen in a while, like when you have good friendships, they don't, even if you don't see each other, they don't go away. The conversation 100%. Isn't any different, and it's not like
you don't get mad if you don't talk to each other for a bit. I mean, that's the thing is like at this point, there's so much going on. Some people are having kids. Some people are getting married. Some people are diving into different careers. It's like people don't have all that much time that we used to. Yeah. So it's like if you don't see somebody, it's okay. If you're not texting 24 hours, every day or every week or every month, it's okay. Yeah. I got Matt Kreider. I see that guy every once in a while, but like if I text him, it's like nothing ever happened. Yeah. Some of the college guys, same sort of thing. And it's like just having that understanding. And like, I think expectation for people is where they like start it's their downfall. They have too high of expectation, or they're like, if this person doesn't check in on me in a week, he's a bad friend or she's a bad friend. It's like, no. Yeah. But at the same time, like if you need some help, reach out. I think it's like, it's a two-way street.
And there's also, I think that there's, I was talking about this with somebody the other day. Like I think distance does something. Like it's like I think about my friend Grady, out in California. It's like he's so far away, and I feel like as a human, you have like an awareness of that subconsciously, where it's like that he's no further away by cell phone than somebody in New Jersey. Right. But We're going to talk less. We're going to obviously see each other less, but we also have a lot of, this is what I'm doing here has brought us, closer too, because we've talked more about, what he does in Hollywood. And it's like, but at the same time, you're doing different things. The West Coast is just a different country in my mind.
I was out there recently, actually, a couple times. It's just different.
Yeah, it's a different.
And it's fine.
Socially.
All of it. And it's definitely wild. So it's like that plus the distance plus just different culture and different, avenues where, you guys are going professionally. It's like, it's okay.
And I even say that. I say it all the time on here about like even moving down to Philly from where we grew up. It's just something, and I think like some of my closest friends like laugh about it, like, dude, you're 45 minutes away. It's like not that far, but it
just feels different.
It's a different, like you don't, like when I go home after being here for like a month or two, it's like, oh my God, trees, like the grass. Like I feel so, I was home last weekend and I was driving by. There's a perfect segue into like kind of your childhood and how you grew up. Like I was driving by your road and I just like looked up.
They paved it.
Yeah.
That's the worst road, I think, in America.
But the most beautiful scenery, like the clouds, the rolling hills, that big tree. That big tree still there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that, I'm pretty sure it's a national landmark now or something. And
yeah.
They did that whole preserve thing just because a lot of builders wanted to kind of take up a lot of the land.
That's right.
They did the reserve, which was cool. Yeah. And I sometimes try to not take that for granted. Sometimes on my off days, like I just get bunkered down on the couch. I'm like, I just need to do nothing today. It's like, dude, you step outside and it is only 4 to 5 minutes away. I mean, like my train ride was 40 minutes and then it's like I walk 5 minutes and I'm here. It just feels different.
Yeah.
And
the air even feels different. That's the thing. Like,
it's quiet, you get like, and I like nature's so healing.
Yes.
And I've like tried to be better with that. I try to kind of like say, hey, let me kind of step out. I'm, obviously still working on it, but my sister's doing a really good job at that. And she's like, yeah, there's a big difference.
Yeah. So that's what, so like growing up, you mentioned, I think earlier, but like how many animals, cause how much land and how many animals? Cause you had the horses underneath the barn.
Yep.
You had dogs running around all the time.
Yeah. It's
do you have like chickens or anything?
We used to. We did the chickens and the ducks, and no matter what we did, the foxes would get them. So we had to bail on that. Yeah, it was not good. But yeah, we have horses. We have donkeys now.
No way.
Yeah. We have a mini horse, and we just get animals that show up. Like a lot of our cats have just like randomly showed up and never leave.
Yeah. Wait, didn't people used to drop their animals on your?
We think so. Like, I don't know how that kind of came about, but there was definitely a few cats that just like showed up and never left. Actually, there was one that showed up a few months ago and now is like another cat. My mom kind of took him in. Sister's not happy about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just like somehow it just keeps adding to it. But we only have the 3 dogs, the 2 cats now. We just had to put down our 19-year-old cat. And then we have the 2 horses, 2 donkeys, and a mini horse.
A mini horse.
Yeah.
So when did you start? Like, when did you start catch the? Because being around the farm, I don't think I ever picked that up, that you had this love for animals.
Yeah. I think I always kind of gravitated toward like movies that had an animal or a dog dying. Forget it. Worst movie ever. Oh. I will not watch it. Like I Am Legend. I saw that in the movie theater. No. Worst movie. I'll never watch that again. No. So yeah, I don't really know. I always just seem to gravitate towards them. Never really kind of picked up on it, I guess, for a while, but I think it was so normalized because I was around animals all the time.
Yeah.
But like if there was, most people do this, but it's like if there's a dog that walks by, I'm there.
Yeah.
Right. And there was always something like that. They're like, oh, an animal's there, Sean's there. So it was just like one of those things where I just think now granted, there are some, nasty animals, but it's like they're so pure. Like they just have one purpose and they don't have the other BS that we always deal with.
Yeah.
And that's fine. They can't rationalize or comprehend any of that. But it's like, I've had animals that are riddled with cancer that are so happy. And because they don't know.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, they probably don't feel 100%, but they are innately still animals. And so they are like, hey, we're going to keep pushing forward. We're going to put our best foot forward no matter what is going on. People can learn a lot from that. I try to do it. It's not easy. It's like you're going to have a bad day. We're all, everybody's going to have a bad day. But seeing some of that, it's like, that's incredible. I've had a dog with a broken leg that's walking in normal. Like, you're like, how do you do that?
Yeah.
And they just keep going. they just fight through whatever they have to deal with, and they keep going, and they just try to have their best day.
That's the thing is like how and again, it's something that I never noticed as a kid growing up about like what animals could do for you, for your soul. And also as a kid, I think that you don't have people could have problems, but you're not aware of them at all times. And like you don't really see or feel what you just see dog happy.
And I think at that point, you're not even necessarily in tune with your own feelings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
so it's like, how can you understand anybody else's or be empathetic or sympathetic and, without kind of understanding feelings in general?
Yeah. It's so fascinating to me about animals, especially dogs, like that they feel your energy and can, again, like you said, like heal that or provide that. Like you can, there's this sense that they have that. Is there like studies on that? Like what is the like?
I'm sure there is. I think it's just hard to quantify that in terms of like actual data. Yeah. But I mean, a lot of people that come in, they're like, this is my spirit animal. Like if I'm sad, my dog knows. But then even the ones that are trained, they're trained to potentially see a seizure, on set before it even happens.
Yeah.
They're trained to see if there's like, you're going to have a low sugar, event.
Panic attack.
A panic attack. You can really honestly do it. And it's remarkable. It's like, they have an innate ability to feel. And I don't know if we could quantify that. I mean, I think in some sense, humans have that ability too, whether you're, if you want to call yourself an empath, you just feel for other creatures. I just think most animals do that, minus
naturally. Yeah.
I think just naturally.
That's the funny thing. We were talking a little bit beforehand about like AI and whatnot. Yeah. It's like a lot of these things like already naturally happen in the world. Yeah. That there are animals that do that. And, yeah, because like that's what I think about a lot. Like I've been thinking about getting a dog. Not that I even can get a dog right now. But like, and I don't know if it's the right thing to do where I live in the city. Yeah, because they should be running around and whatnot. But I think about it, I'm like, dude, that's therapy right there. Like when you're having a bad,
it definitely can be
that kind of relationship. And
it's a companion. It's responsibility. It's kind of keeping yourself somewhat structured. You kind of have to look after somebody, and it's like all that is, I think, super beneficial.
And getting outside of yourself a little bit. Getting, again, like having, like you said, a responsibility, somebody to take outside, somebody to be with.
And everyone, their goals for animals are different. Everyone's like, is this okay? Is that okay? It's like, whatever your goal is for, like, if you don't want your dog trained, that's fine. Yeah. Like, you don't have to be trained. Like, if someone says your dog's bad because they're not trained, like, that's their problem.
And who was your dog? And sorry to, it'll get you emotional, bring it up, but you had a dog when you were younger.
Sam.
Yeah, and then there's another one. Was it Buck?
We had Buck, which was our bloodhound. We had Buka, which was this black lab. We had Sam, which was our like 18-year-old dog. Yeah, for like I think most of my life. Yeah. Because there was I think it was when Sam passed and or Buck. Like it was just like, again, your parents had that like so many kids over running around. Oh yeah. Like, we all spent a lot of time with them, and we'd sleep over, and you'd wake up, and there's dogs running around. I was always afraid of dogs because Eric was allergic growing up. So I was always like super sketched out. And then again, they can kind of feel that. And I remember waking up and being just like, I know. Yeah. We've definitely had some, crazy dogs. I mean, some definitely with some aggression stuff, but yeah, Sam was a special one. Buck was a special one. Both of them are tattooed on me. So it's like, I think those were a big reason as to why I loved animals so much. Like Sam was just one of those pure soul. I mean, he was one of the best dogs. He just, he made it to 18. He was, he was around most of my life. He was always there. That one was hard. Yeah. And, mentally he started to decline and his like hips went, but other than that, he was still fine, but obviously the big thing with veterinary medicine is we focus on quality of life, so that's, the big difference between human med and vet med. It's like, we obviously have the ability to put animals to sleep. Yeah. Right. So not being a part of that in the beginning, my dad was always the one to do that. And then I was at Penn State when Buck died, and I started to kind of understand a little bit more about, veterinary medicine and stuff. Not really a whole lot at that point, but it started to become, I guess, normal. It's probably the bad word to put it, but I mean, I cry for the ones that I do professionally. Yeah. Like there's some that just hit different, whatever the circumstances are. Yeah.
That's the thing. I was so interested to hear how you deal with this and how you do this. And I got to meet a guy, his name's Joseph Scott Morgan. He's a death forensics analyst, and he does some of the TV type stuff. Sure. And he, again, like if there's a case, he's the one who they, hey, where'd you see? And it's like a lot of like murders, bullet wounds, and assessing the entire situation and notifying the families and stuff like that. And again, and the way that just hearing him, and I said to him, I was like he said he did 1,000 autopsies in a year. And it's like, you don't like, fortunately, it's not normal to just see death like that commonly, but when it's happening so often, and again, I didn't realize you were in the emergency room, so you're seeing it even more than I thought probably.
Yeah.
And how you deal with that. And like you said, like sometimes it hits different, but like how do you compartmentalize what you're doing? Again, professionally, you're trying to help, and then you're also a human being that like you just saw death, and you saw somebody's, again, like you said, with 18 years, there's people who have animals that it was with them when they got married, it was with them when they got their first kid, and then they're gone. And do you have to notify like? Yeah,
it's I think the way I kind of deal with it's a little different. Like for me personally, like, most people that know me, it's like I have a fear of death. Like that for the longest time has scared the hell out of me.
Really?
Right. So it's like, then I start having to deal with that. Like I can't even kill a fly. Like I can't even kill a spider, or a bee. I'm picking that up and putting it outside. Right. Which, again, it's like, so then for me to have to be the one to take a life, it's like, I still remember the first one I did.
Wow.
And like, I remember after the first one, I was at Wisconsin, I told the resident, I was like, I need to go take a second. And I just started crying. And it's like, I think I used to be ashamed of that. And it doesn't happen all that much right now, but there are some where I have to step away. And it depends on the circumstance. Like, is it just an overall very sad thing that just it was a freak thing, or whether there's a huge backstory from the owner? Does it remind me of some of my own animals?
Yeah.
It really depends. And then there's some where it's like, I think the most challenging stuff, which I'm sure we'll probably get into, is like having to put animals down because people can't afford to treat them, and it's fully treatable. Like, I know we're going to fix your animal, but we can't because you can't or don't want to pay for it. That's the side of it where I can't get on board. Like, I still have a hard time going, is this okay? This is not why you get into vet med. Yeah. It's a reality. Everyone obviously in this time is, things are hard, but I'm torn because it's like, at this point, it's a financial responsibility. Things go really wrong, whether you want them to or not. And are you prepared to deal with what you got to do? And a lot of times on an emergency basis, depending on where we are, it's probably not as, common, but it happens quite a bit. Is like, they're like, I can't do that. What do we do? And it's not even about medicine at that point. It's like, we're at option 6. Like, here's the best thing I can do. Here's the next best. And then you get to option 6 and then they're like, then they come back at you complaining because nothing's fixed or you don't have an answer. It's like, I can't do anything.
Yeah.
Like, how do you want me to give you an answer? And everyone jokes, animals don't talk. It's like, if a human physician goes, where is it hurting? You localize it to somewhere.
Yeah.
Or they're like, you know what? Most people have insurance or something like that. It's like, they don't think about it.
Yeah. But
when on an emergency basis, 24-hour facility, things are going to be a little bit more expensive. You walk into an ER, you have abdominal pain, you do x-rays, they don't see it, you're going to do a CT. You just spent $5,000 and nobody even knew about it.
Yeah, and that's on the other side of it is like, I remember a friend's, I think it was her sister or something like that. Like, they had these medical bills that ended up costing like $20,000, and it's like, to be faced with that decision, it's like, that's college, or like at least a start of a college fund for your future child.
Right.
It's just reality. These decisions have to be made, and it's awful. Like, it sucks for everybody involved.
It does.
And then there's, I don't know. I guess like when you were talking about that, it made me think about the unfortunate side of, I'm sure what you deal with too, is that just like there's certain people who just, not even that they can't financially, but they just don't take care of their animals.
Neglect.
Like, neglect. Like, I heard about somebody the other day that, they ended up adopting a dog that had just lived outside in a, like all the time, and like just got one bowl of food every day and was just chained and just didn't like. And that's I'm sure. Have you seen that?
I've run into that. Yeah, like before I left my other practice, this lovely woman, I guess it was a foster at that point, just took in this like the happiest pit bull that had like a face wound that was necrotic, and it's definitely been going on for a long time. Emaciated, horrible skin disease, all sorts of GI disease. And it was just like seeing that, I'm like, I've become jaded to people. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like I'm seeing a small percentage of people that it's not even about education at that point. It's just like, how can you just look at this and be like, I don't care?
Yeah.
Or why get it in the first place? Or, again, there's definitely obviously unknowns where it's like, all right, well, we were trying to breed, we were trying to sell, who knows? But it just rips the heart out. I mean, it really does. And I know some of it's education and just people not quite understanding, but it gets back to most people understand dog needs to be fed. It should be not chained up.
Yeah.
If you have a face wound, go get that fixed. You know, it's like, but people don't.
Yeah.
Where they wait a week and a half and the dog's critically ill and then they're like, well, I can't do anything. It's like, well, you could have brought us a week ago and we probably would be in a better shape and able to treat this pretty simply. But now here we are because you just simply were like, hey, I had this to do, I had that to do. I didn't think it was a big deal. And that's the thing. It's like a lot, and people probably do it in human medicine too, or just with your own self, like, this isn't a big deal.
Yeah.
But it's like animals don't show anything, and that's the problem.
Yeah.
They're too stoic because they try to put their best foot forward until they can't mask what's going on.
Yeah.
And so when you start seeing that, and sometimes it's subtle. And so, I mean, I can't fault people for not quite totally seeing.
And that's what you said before.
Frustrating.
Yeah.
It just gets real frustrating. And I know like my peers do a really good job of just not letting that get to them. And maybe I'll learn that over time. But sitting in the exam room, you know, I don't necessarily want to make people sad, but it's like, you know, last night,
Yeah.
you know, we had a dog that came in as a stat because
what is a stat?
It's like dying, critical. Like we need to do something right now.
Yeah.
And it ate rat bait for the second time. And they were looking at me like, oh, this dog's so stupid. And I just wanted to be like,
Yeah.
why did you have rat bait in the first place? And not only in the first place, but the second time. And unfortunately, we lost a dog.
Yeah.
Like we lost her. And this dog was 3 years old. And it's like dealing with some of that. It's like
Yeah.
this dog didn't have to die at all.
And then that's the thing, is like, that's what I was so to get into inside of your emotional mind, because it's like, now you're here. And now it's a Saturday and we're having a cup of coffee, we're having a conversation,
Right.
and like you dealt with that last night.
And,
while
and
I was laying
I
on the
try
couch.
not to bring it into other aspects of my life.
Yeah.
Now I fully admit, like I think about those cases for quite some time after I leave the hospital.
Yeah.
It's just so frustrating. It's like,
And a lot of people's jobs aren't that emotionally involved.
Yeah.
And that's something that even as I talk about being in sales, or like having been in sales, like compared to this, it sounds so silly and stupid, but like you still do think about things outside of the 9 to 5 or outside of the workday, because again, sales, you have quota, your money is dependent on different things, and like you're thinking about them. And that is why I've really enjoyed a lot of the whether it be like manual labor or work where it's just like, again, working at a restaurant, like you leave the restaurant, the check's not coming with you, like nothing's, you know, you're out, you're mentally out. And like that's a gift. And to think about, again, you're dealing with death, you're dealing with all these things, like that's, especially with people. And that's something that you said beforehand, was like, when people can't even take care of themselves, how they're expected to take care of an animal or something like that. Like, again, like I'm being judgmental in my head right now, but like, I would imagine these people don't show up and they're not the people that are at yoga 5 days a week and that are, you know, in a great place in their own life, you know, if that's happening to their animals. And like, there's probably those cases that happen like that too, unfortunately, but like to take
100%. Yeah, there's all sides of the spectrum. I mean, I get people that are ready to spend thousands of dollars for times they don't have to, but they just want to just be safe. Yeah. Which preventative medicine, I mean, minus like the sales aspect or, you know, whatever, the GP, I mean, preventative medicine is great. You know, you kind of try and pick up on things before it happens. You know, if you could do that, great. But in the sense of like, then I get people that just refuse to treat. I mean, I had a dog that got sandwiched between a giant truck and like a wall, and the owners were like, I don't really want to, they're not my kid. You know, my dog's not my kid. And I was like, what do you want me to do? Like, you came here and you can't necessarily do anything. And then they look at me as if like I'm going to be the mediator of like, well, I can do this for free, I can do this for free. It's like, that's not how that works. Yeah. Like, unfortunately. And so then I'm left with thinking about an animal that I have no idea if it's doing well or not. I have no idea, but it happens all the time. Yeah. So like that part to me, it's like, I know a lot of people that do a really good job of letting that go. And I mean, there's some that I can and some that I can't. So that's when I lean on some of this other stuff that I just know it's like, I can focus on one thing. I just can, you know, turn off with everything else. And I absorb it. Like it's not that I'm not acknowledging it, but thankfully Alexis is so amazing. The fact that she always wants me to talk about it, but I'm also like, and she's in the medical field. So like she gets it as well. but nobody needs to hear about the kitten
That's dude.
that's doing this, or the puppy that had this. It's like nobody needs to hear that. Plus, I don't want to do that to anybody. I don't want to put that in the air.
Yeah.
So,
but it has to be dealt with in some way. And even when you said that about the dog, like that's like I like winced. You know what I mean? Like it's just like even to hear it, and that's to hear it secondhand,
right?
To like live it and to see it and that's the thing is like somebody has to do your job,
right?
And thank God that you are, and thank all the people that are doing this. And it's probably honestly a lot of everybody wants credit these days for every single thing that they do, but it's like these like animals are such a big part of our lives. And when the people are talking about first responders, and again, everybody deserves everybody deserves Absolutely. That credit, but something I definitely have never heard, and that's why I was so excited to hear about this stuff, is vets. And there's and again, animals are such a big part of our lives. Somebody's got to take care of them, and somebody has to deal with these things.
And
it's
like hard.
You're not dealing with one of the things I was excited to ask about, but I guess I don't know if you deal with it, but is like maybe you did in school and whatnot, but like the birth of animals.
Yeah,
because like that
we see it a
like
little bit.
Very special.
I did a C-section on a Frenchie. I helped with that with one of the another doctor. They're cool, but it's like my point of view is like there's so many animals now and less veterinary professionals.
Yeah, and can you explain why that's happening? Because we touched on
it. It's burnout, man. I mean, we have one of the higher burnout rates, and a lot of it has to do with just the demand. I mean, the dynamic between it is really challenging because people are like, you're too expensive. It's like, we don't get into this for the money. It's like our debt to income ratio is one of the worst comparatively, and so like, we don't do that for that. And then you get technicians that are amazing that are on like the front lines of this stuff and basically doing most of what we need done. And they're getting paid, minimal. And it's like, they should be getting paid double, if not more. But so then they get burnt out, and then you get the outside noise of people suing, people screaming, people bringing us, just unreal dumb things that you're like, this didn't need to happen. And it's just the repetition of that. It's like, this is exhausting.
Yeah. Even again, hearing your stories it's emotionally taxing. Let alone.
Yeah. And that's like, it's like some days are great. It's like, even with those, I'm like, I love this. I want to be the person that has to do with it. And then like everyone jokes, like me included. It's like, I got into, veterinary medicine to get away from people. We treat people just as much. Like I get people that come in and talk for 45 minutes just to air stuff out.
Yeah.
And I'm like, not even about the animal. And I see people going through all sorts of stuff. And it's like, it also is a reminder, like people are going through stuff, so I try not to be so black and white. I do have to advocate for the animal before the person, but it's so multifactorial where it's like I have had people that are, in crazy anxiety, depressive disorders all of a sudden, and then they're getting evicted from their house and they're still trying to take care of their cat with cancer. And it's like, those people would do anything for their animal. And then you get people that are like, I've had somebody tell me, I have the money, but I'm going on a trip next week and I don't want to waste that money for this. And it's something treatable. I'm like, you need to fix this.
Yeah.
And then he's like, well, And
so how does that work in the room? Like, are you, again, what's your, what are you taught? You said like, that's something that's new for me. You're treating the animal before the person, obviously. So like,
yeah.
What are the steps of like what you're supposed to do? Are you supposed to go and just do whatever needs to be done? Did they tell you, hey, up until this point, this amount of money, we'll do anything
it's
under
different.
this?
It's a lot of that. I mean, there's definitely protocols to stuff. I mean, it gets hard because like if something is critical and it comes in as a stat, we make them kind of sign something real quick, but nobody has time to read it. So then it's like, can you stabilize? Can you, if an animal were to code, can we do CPR? And like people don't realize that's going to cost $600 to $1,000 minimum.
Yeah.
And then like we do it and then they're like, wait, I didn't want you to do that. It's like, well, you signed it.
Yeah.
And I can't just in the middle of your animal potentially be, dying, go out and ask you, are you sure we're allowed to do this?
Yeah.
Which there's no right way. Right. So then that gets hard.
So kind of silly question, but like how, like, is an animal CPR the same as like human CPR?
Yeah, but for the most part, I mean, we often don't go into the chest. I mean, I've never seen that done. It's something we don't really do, but we do defibrillate. We do a lot of injectable drugs. We do compressions. It's a little less in depth, but the general concept is basically the same.
Yeah.
And then if we have to intubate and breathe for the animal, success rate is not that high. You know, a lot of times when we get those, it's like things are really actively dying or in a bad way.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is another thing. You're like, as a vet, you're dealing with like all animals, right? Like
You can. Yeah. I mean, for me, I typically just do dogs and cats, but you know, at Wisconsin, I had to do like a bearded dragon or something.
I was going to say like a snake or something.
Yeah. Like
people have,
I'm good
you know.
without seeing any of that.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I'm fine. Plus I don't really have a good, you know, knowledge at this point. You kind of had to learn some of that for your boards.
Yeah.
You know,
Cause I'm
like,
thinking as you're talking about CPR, like even just understanding the bone structure of different animals, of even different.
It's fine with dogs and cats, but anything else after that, it's like there are exotic vets. You know, like there are, you know, vets that have either an interest or they get board certified or whatever it is in exotics. There's different niche markets. Like Florida's great, LSU's great. Like all those places are really good for exotics.
That
but like,
makes sense.
Like Radnor, you know, has a really good exotic vet. But other than that, it's like I don't really know, you know, where anybody. But I don't think a lot of people have exotic vets. But we get like rabbits and stuff and random stuff that I'm like, if I have to deal with it, I'll try. But I'm not the best to do that. But, you know, some people bring them in. You know, we had a lady that wanted to do a head CT on a hamster.
And a head CT.
Like a CAT scan.
Okay, yeah.
Like on a hamster.
Yeah. It is, I hate that I even just like naturally laugh, but it is like, you know, again, people have these emotional connections to different animals.
Yeah. And I'm just like, listen, I love it, but there is a point where you try to have to be realistic. And unfortunately we try to say, is your animal suffering at this point? Is it worth, you know, trying all these extensive measures? It's hard because if an owner's like, yes, it's like, you kind of have to honor that. And I got stuck in a situation where a dog ingested something and was obstructed, young dachshund. And the owner straight up told me, I don't want to pay for surgery because I just got a puppy and I don't want to spend that money. This dog would have been alive. And I didn't know I had the ability to say no for that euthanasia. I think about that dog almost every day because I could have fixed that dog.
See, that's the thing. It's like, that's what, and again, to all the, you know, like you said, hopefully, or there was kind of friends that you had in the field that were interested in you coming on and doing this. And like, that's the thing. It's like, these are the things people don't think about, that this is I say it like every time, my whole purpose of doing all of this is just getting inside the mind of humans and just understanding that the person on the street, the person on the bus, the person on the train is dealing with something you don't know what it is, whether it's with work, whether it's with family, whether it's within their own self. They're dealing with something, they're seeing things. And you
have no idea. Walking
into the bar in Phoenixville or something like that and seeing you during Thanksgiving Eve, whatnot, like you're not thinking about what you just dealt with. Not understanding that, again, you were just, you were in a place where you lost an animal last night as a part of your profession, as a part of your work.
And I drove home and I had to go to bed. You know, it's like, it's definitely something where like, I'm still trying to figure out a good way. You know, I definitely at this point don't hide from those emotions. Like I really know a lot of like vets that just do such a good job. I'm not saying that it doesn't bother them, but I don't think being numb to it's the right word. I think they just do a really good job of saying, hey, I can't control this. This is what it is. And they do, you know, really good job of like kind of rationalizing it to them. Yeah. And it's like, everyone's going to handle it in their own way. And
are you taught that in vet school? Because I spoke with a therapist that was not in a therapeutic setting, but we were just chatting and he said something about like doing work in the mental health field. A lot of people take time off, like extensive time off, like 3 months or something like that, because they just have to come back down and it is so intense. But he also said that there's times, like there was literally lessons in school about how to put your mask on when you go into these things, because you sit down with people. He was saying from a therapist standpoint, you sit down with people, you hear all of the traumas, and it like it's called like vicarious trauma. Okay, like that. Like again, when people are unloading stuff, and that's what kind of happens in here to me now. Is like I'm trying to figure out how to not like there's a high and there's a low, because like I love these conversations, I love having it, and then I say like everybody leaves, and then it's just like thinking about the stories or thinking about the things, and it's just like and again, this is to so much of a lesser extent because I'm not seeing animals or people die,
but and I think
figuring out how you deal with it.
Like nobody wants to think about that. It's like I've gone through and I've seen a lot and doing that stuff, and it's like even Alexis through her training, it's like I could not see a cadaver human being, like that stuff bothers me. And so it's like, well, I can't see an animal. It's like it's just different perspectives, and it's like everyone's highs and lows should not be compared, because they're just my high and my low doesn't necessarily mean it's any higher or lower than yours. Exactly. It's how you perceive it. And like, I mean, I know everybody's at fault, but it's like somebody's going through something, so it's like all I can do is focus on me and who I care about and who I need to take care of. And then after that, it's like, you can't force anybody to do anything. And I think that's the problem these days.
And
It's like everyone's so opinionated, and it's like no one is letting anybody have an opinion. It's like if your opinion is different from mine, I hate you. And I mean, I know that's pretty black and white, but it's like.
But that's how, I mean, especially
it's like we're living in a world where it's like I have to win and you have to lose.
Yeah.
It's like, why? Why can't we all just keep going?
Yeah.
Why can't we all keep growing in our own way?
I was
Whatever
listening
your goal is.
I think it was actually on Rogan the other day that he was talking about like 20 years ago. It was like, I support George Bush. I support somebody else. It's like, it wasn't like a flag that was on your car, and it wasn't like it was a presentation
100%.
of the person supports Trump. It's just like,
It's wild.
what does that say about them? Like,
Right.
And again, there are people, unfortunately, today where people think it says a lot. And I actually was reading a study last night about the way, like the way that you grow up in childhood. If you have a safer childhood, a more protected childhood, you end up being more conservative as an adult. And they're like very distinct.
Probably true.
They're very distinct. Like it's like the people who had problems or people who again struggled more in childhood end up being liberal. And it's like so
Yeah, it's actually that's interesting.
yeah. And I didn't get through it. Like again, like I read these things and I like it hits me and I remember it, but like to process all of the information, all the why, it like takes me reading it a couple times or talking about it a couple times.
Yeah,
But it's like
I do that all the time.
what the like. Again, if somebody supports Trump, you're not understanding the 20 years of life or the 50 years of life that got them there.
Right.
Well, they might have been, because like this is what I've gone through politically, or like I've been on all the way on the left, all the way on the right, and then it's just like I'm 28 years old. I'm trying to figure it out. Like 100%. You go through different life
and you're
experiences.
allowed to. I mean, I think that's the beauty. It's like people are taking away just the ability for us to do whatever we want.
Yeah.
Or like to some extent, but it's like, what I do with whatever I do does not have to negatively affect you. It's like the comedy world. It's like people talking about, different, very controversial, touchy subjects. It's like, don't take the comedian's ability away to say it.
Yes.
And you can process it the way that you want. If you don't like the joke, don't laugh, but don't stand up and say that was horrible. You're a horrible person. It's like, it's one little joke.
Yeah.
Everyone relax. And I mean, getting back to your question of like, do they tell us anything about like, teach us anything? It's like we have comm labs, and like you can never fully do the real thing, right? Until you get there, right? You're gonna have simulations, and that's fine. And they tell you, you need a funnel, you need to do warning shots, and they kind of lay it out for you. It's so different every time. Some people can handle it. Some people who are already crying when their dog just has diarrhea and your dog's going to be fine. Every person, every appointment needs to be talked to different. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'll credit my dad. It's like when we were younger, it's like I hated talking on the phone or calling somebody. He's like, you're calling. You order this. Like you're going to go and get, and like it took me a little bit. I mean, it's like I hated it for a while. And then I just had to learn to
I remember that. I remember your dad making
I hated
that.
it. I hated trying to call and order stuff or take out or just talking to anybody. I was just nervous.
But that was intentional. Has he explained that? The thing
Probably
behind
intentional. I mean, he comes from a world where he has to talk all the time. So I'm just assuming he was like, listen, you're not going to be one of those shy kids that's just not going to have the ability to talk to people.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that a lot of people appreciate when I kind of talk to him is I talk to him as like a real person.
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk over them like I'm the doctor, you're going to sit here and you're going to listen. I talk to them about what their goals are, what can we do, whatever it is. And a lot of people just appreciate me listening, which sometimes gets me in trouble if I've been there for 30 minutes because people start ranting, but I think that's part of the emotional side of this is like, I've been in their shoes with medical emergencies with our own animals.
Yeah.
I've been there. None of it's fun.
And that's, I was listening to a podcast, Jake Scott's podcast last night, where he was talking to a guy I actually also know, that teaches at Harvard. And he made a joke about, as a teacher, he's not trying to be here and here. And for those just listening, I'm putting my hands at two different levels. Like he wants to be on the same level as these kids. He wants to have, he was talking about how and he's teaching history and he's talking about, the older presidents. And he's like, look, Buchanan and all these guys, like they're not going to be interesting. But if I say like, oh yeah, they threw a rager in the White House, like that's going to get a kid in the back row who's not paying attention to be like, all right, he's like trying to talk on my level of like interest and catch 100%. That kind of thing. And like to be able to do that, whether it's teaching, and especially in this, I imagine is a extremely important thing that again, you can't really simulate. And I can't imagine that as much practice as it takes when an animal's dying, I don't know if you can simulate that energy of what's going on in that room. Again,
you can't.
With somebody's emotions, you're feeling that of just a random, like this came to me, like, are you feeling more the emotions of the animal or the emotions of the person? Are you trying
I
to
think
process
it's more
all
of
of it
the,
at
I
the
think
same
it's
time?
both. I think more of it's the animal. Cause like the way I look at it is like I've held animals upside down knowing that they're probably going to die no matter what we try. And so when I look at these guys and they don't understand. So it's like that part gives me peace. And I tell people before I put animals to sleep, they're not scared of what's going to happen next. They're not scared about, what the next chapter is. They're not scared about anything. So we can at least say that they're like, for us, it's like, that's terrifying sometimes for people. So like that part at least gives me peace in those moments, but it's like, there's nothing to prepare you for different each case. And so like, that is the hardest part for me, where it's like, how do I deal with this? And then like seeing it, and when it comes out good the other side, it's like the best thing in the world. But obviously on an emergency basis, you're going to see some stuff that you're going to have to try and put out fires. They come in blazing. It's a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just the nature of what it is. People are like, oh, I don't want to go to the vet because it's going to be this amount of money. Oh, this dog normally throws up, once or twice, it's not a big deal. Let's keep going. That's not wrong. It's just like people can't get into their primary vets. We're too slammed. People are burning out.
And you said the amount of medicine, or like going about things two different ways. Like you can pump animals with medicine because hey, if they're having a problem, we can stop it with medicine. But then you said that you have the other, side of your brain kind of thinking, is this good that we're pumping animals with all this medicine?
Right.
But it's like people aren't gonna, like you said about nutrition. Well, like
none of it.
If they're not gonna do a nutrition plan for themselves, they're not gonna do a nutrition plan for their dog, and
that's the hard part. It's like I try not to funnel like my own beliefs into the medicine, because the training is obviously, with any medical training, it's like, here's drugs and here's what we can do to fix a problem right now. And a lot of people want that now, and they don't necessarily care because they don't care for them. People are popping Tylenol and Advil every day. It's like, that stuff is horrible for you, but you can tolerate it up to a certain point.
Yeah.
So it is tough. And I mean, we don't have the same level of research that humans do. Like the whole fresh food diet has kind of caught wave like in the vet community. So some don't like it because that's not traditional. I like the concept of it. It's more real food. You kind of get out the fillers, but it's going to come with some side effects.
Like for the animals, yeah.
Right. So it's like, I'm not saying it's a perfect thing, but it's like, if people actually started diving into the American diet and what they're actually pumping into their body and just giving the other side a go, it's not sexy. It's like, it's boring. But it doesn't have to be.
And it's inconvenient too, is the thing.
And it doesn't have to be chicken and rice. Like, it doesn't have to be that like simple. Like, you can make it work. And I always try to tell people that have any interest, it's like, come up with a plan or have somebody help you that you can maintain it long term. Is that having a cheat meal once a week? Sure. But most people are like, I can't stop something cold turkey. It's like, well, do you have the discipline that if you give yourself some of that at some point, are you not going to go back and just keep doing that?
Yeah.
And a lot of people, I think they can't because they haven't created a discipline or care enough. So it's hard. I just kind of go, you know what? How can I just fix what I need to fix? And what is I try not to take on too much, because if I start doing that, I just get too involved.
Yeah.
And it's like,
and again, your meter is like topping out.
Yeah.
Where it's like you got to do what you're trained to do, what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And you have to leave that kind of opinion and that personal. It's such a weird divide. It's such a weird, because like, again, you got to leave some of you at home, and you gotta, again, there's things that that's the thing that I'm just like in my head. I'm like, you're a human being who's dealing with all of this that on average human beings don't deal with anymore. Because again, when I think one of the other things I was excited about is like understanding the relationship between people and animals over time, and the relationship between especially people and dogs, and like how this happened, and hunting and all of these things. Like, this used to be something that was a little bit more, and I'm talking thousands of years ago, like whether it's sacrifices or animals being part of all of these different things, like there's an entire different relationship that we've had with dogs over time.
And everyone's, everyone kind of, people are always like, what do I do here? Like, I can't do this or can't do that. Like, what do I do? And they're looking at me like, make a decision for me. It's like, I'm not paying your bill. Like, I can only tell you what I can do in order to treat your animal.
Yeah.
And so it just gets really frustrating when it's not about the animal, and it's more about the finances, which obviously is part of the equation. But then it's like the relationship is so vast. I have people that are ready to dump their life savings into an animal knowing it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
And I have people that are
Then
like,
how do you handle that? How do you deal with that where you're like, yo, you might spend a lot of money and we can't really do anything. Do you tell the people?
I do. Yeah. I mean, some people think like, and obviously it's up to them. So it's like, if they want us to hospitalize and take that pressure off and do this, that, and the other, it's like, sure. Like if it's obviously safe for the animal. But yeah, I mean, I try not to money gouge people. It's like, I brutally tell them, I'm like, this is how much things cost. We can do this, this, and this. If we can't do this, we can start here. And then sometimes people are like, it's too many options. What do you want me to do? It's like, well, I've done that. And I don't like to be abrasive. I don't like to, obviously some cases are like, we have to do this or like, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Some people take to it, some people don't, and some people are willing to pay whatever, and some people can't pay anything, and some people can, but they won't.
Yeah.
It's just every combination I feel like we've run into.
Do people ever ask like, what would you do? Like
every appointment.
I was going to say that would be mine.
And
like I would have no idea.
Brutal thing. Like I always kind of tell people, it's like, I would not offer anything I wouldn't do for my animal.
Yeah.
And then I tell them, to be brutally honest, like I don't pay the same amount you do. So like it's different. I'm in the field. I get to do it myself, or at least lean on colleagues and specialists and those that I have ability to work with, and not have to pay the consult fee, or not have to do this, or get paid 50% for blood work. Whatever. So it's a little different. If you have to spend $5,000 workup, it's like that won't be what I pay.
Yeah.
And so I tell people that. I'm like, but I would not offer anything that I wouldn't do for my animal. Like I would do the exact same, here's the gold standard treatment or, workup that I think we should do. And then that's what I would do. So I don't, everyone's expecting me to kind of give them like this, beautiful answer. It's like, no, like I'm not going to just, do something because I'm here to, rack up your bill. I try to do things that's not going to rack up the bill because we already have that stigma. Everyone thinks that we're in it for the money, and, you might get some of that on the corporate side. I hate corporate vet med.
That's what. Can you explain the difference of whether because you're a private practice?
Yeah, so I work at Hickory Vet and Specialty Hospital in Plymouth Meeting. So it's a third generation owned hospital. Right now, it's owned by a husband and wife, neurologist, and ER GP doctor. So like corporate is either like a Banfield or a Blue Pearl or something like that. That is either owned by a conglomerate or is owned by a parent company.
Yeah, and are these owned by like people hospitals or people healthcare systems?
I don't kind of look into the corporate side too much. There's definitely some that I talk to that know a lot more about it. It's often like Mars is a huge company, and they own quite a few of these like smaller, but they're still huge vet practices. And like they're all about the bottom line. They still have really good vets. I'm not going to say it's the vets, but it's like the overall protocol and like the hospital,
the system that they're put into.
It's just correct. And so, I've always said that I'm going to stay away from that no matter how much money they would offer. I mean, they offer a lot, so it's like, I just can't morally do that. I just won't. If I have to at some point for like whatever the reason is, like
if you have kids
really have to, sure. But it's just, I just don't believe, and not all of it's bad. There's definitely some really good hospitals, really good veterinarians, really good medical directors that run those hospitals. It's just that system.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like, when I think about it, it's set up like this is a society that we live in. Money drives it. So like that is what it is. And it makes sense why that's how if you play it out, if you simulate it, that's what's going to happen. And is it a bad thing? Again, the access, the size that these things can get to, the speed at which things can happen, the red tape that they can, either have or not have, and the things. Again, that's like we'll have to get into the COVID.
You could go forever.
Yeah, but like when the COVID thing happened, it was like, oh, like this is again, vaccine takes 7 years, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, it's like, well, when again, these people have the power to be able to do these kinds of things. And is that good? Is that bad? We all look back at things in a retrospect.
Yeah.
Who really knows? And
right.
But it's necessary. You got to have both sides.
Correct. I mean, how are you going to advance and kind of move forward and do all other stuff? But then like, everyone that really, really knows me, I start going down like the conspiracy theory as they start calling it. But it's like, there are a lot of things that they create the problem so that you buy the solution that they create. Right. And it's like, I think unfortunately we're in a consumer world that people are just constantly consuming. They just want to consume. Yeah. And right or wrong. Yeah. And we're not going to get out of that reality. Yeah. And
that's the thing. It's like, again, it has to be like, we do have a nice cushy life. Yeah. That's a lot on average compared to everybody else in the world. We do. And so like, is this the system that provides that, yes, but then there's also the highs, there's also the lows, and you have to deal with those certain things.
Yeah.
And part of that is that, and it's not even like, I don't even know if you can call it conspiracy. We are, as humans, filled with things that are unhealthy for us, experiences that are unhealthy for us, to provide things that are good for us. Access to food quicker means lower quality food. Access to entertainment quicker means lower quality entertainment. Yeah. Access to more people means lower quality interactions.
It gets, and that's where like I get super frustrated with a lot of different stuff, because it's like the stuff that is actually really good for you, there is evidence for it, is almost too expensive for most people.
Yes, how are you gonna do it?
To sustain it. It's like, for me, I spend so much money on food, but I've already accepted it. It's like, I cannot go that other way and do the process, but it's like...
And you're making a trade-off in your own personal life.
I'm like, listen, I order my stuff from a farm in Lancaster, like minimally processed, all grass-fed, nothing, like they do their own thing, that's it. And it's like, I feel such a difference when I do that versus if I just go in between the aisles in a grocery store.
Yeah,
it's like you really shouldn't buy anything in the aisles of a grocery store, but it's cheaper, it's convenient. People just look for that.
You don't have to think about it.
They're in a convenience. That's what people want.
It's literally called a convenience store,
right? 100%, right? So it's like that's what people want. They want convenience, and it gets really frustrating because it's like most people know fast food is horrible for you, but they don't care. And it's like when I start thinking about it, it's like I think I saw this somewhere. It's like an avocado costs $3. For one avocado. 3 Taco Bell tacos cost 99 cents. How does that equate?
Yeah.
Because it's barely even anything that should be put in your body, because they have pumped all this money into creating, these products that can be used efficiently, quick, and cost effective.
Yeah.
And it's not anything real.
And somebody sent me on Instagram the other day, one of these guys that has one of these like health accounts where it's like showing you in a Dunkin' Donuts coffee or something like that, like how much sugar's in there and all the things that are in there, and the caffeine and things like that. It's one of the most addictive drugs. Like I think if you start changing that narrative, that like you really start looking into it, it's pretty remarkable what these, what people find. And like I've read a bunch of studies, and I just have like, I think vet school did this. It's like, I'm so obsessed with consuming knowledge, right or wrong. It's like you get to just consume knowledge, form your own opinions, figure out what's right or wrong for you, and then just kind of roll with it. Now, obviously there's, extremes with everything. But, I think for that sense, it's like there was a study, an elimination diet study for kids with, I think like nearly 300 kids with like ADHD symptoms. They did an elimination diet, just basically took out all processed, all sugar, like red 40, all that stuff. I think 73% of them resolved all ADHD signs. Yeah. And I'm like, why isn't that a focus? Yeah. Because it's hard. And it doesn't make you any money.
It doesn't make you any money. And like with anxiety and depression, it was like they did a study that exercise and diet change, whatever the exercise is, it doesn't have to be lifting weights. It could be walking outside. It could be hiking, rock climbing, whatever it is, with a good diet, doesn't have to be perfect, was as equal, if not better, to treat anxiety and depression than pills. But doctors are so ready to go, here's antidepressants. Yeah. Here's anti-anxiety. It's like, well, they actually have,
take the time.
And they actually have found that it actually might do a better job. But it's also like, why not try that first? If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Yeah. But like the body is made to repair itself and heal itself and operate in a way that most people don't understand. I'm not acting like I do, but like lifting weights creates hope proteins that literally is an antidepressive. And they have literally scientific evidence. It's a myokine where it's like, this is proven to decrease anxiety and depression.
Yeah. But it takes the time. And that's the thing is I was saying before we started, like I try to be very open about my own health and the ups and downs in life of like, and I've been making unhealthy choices as of late for the sake of convenience and for the sake of, again, I know I'm going to have to deal with certain things, or I need to get in better shape. Cause like there's a point during COVID where it's like, all I did was work out. I was in the best shape of my life. I was eating healthy, all organic, everything was.
You probably felt great.
Yeah. But at that point I was working. I didn't have to worry. Like that's all I had to worry about. Now I'm going to be starting a job. I'm doing this. I'm like, there's a lot of other things going on. Am I going to make the conscious decision? I know what I should be doing is going to the gym.
Everyone knows.
Yeah. But I'm consciously making the decision not to, because all right, I'm just going to band-aid it for right now. Sure. And then I'm going to go deal with it. And that's why, again, I've spoken about this, the weird position it is to host a mental health podcast when I'm not always in the best place as myself. And I started out, I was doing great. I was
Yeah.
all healthy. I was in my routines.
Yep.
I was like, I almost felt like a little preachy, like watch this or like that, you know, and then it's like, wait, and then I'm floundering and it is what it is. But that's also life. That's what the journey is. That's what you have, these ups and downs. And the
100%, you're gonna have those peaks and valleys. I
Yeah.
mean, you have to. And I think like for me, I've done like, you know, I put a lot of effort in just going, I'm going to embrace when there's a low and I know I'm going to get out of it. And I know how to get out of it. And I'm going to not hide this. Cause if you start internalizing things, it's just going to start blowing up.
Yeah.
But everyone can do that differently. You know, it's like for me, I can't take out the sadness and the stress of my job. I can't. There's no way.
Yeah.
All I can do is create tools and create a discipline or create a schedule, you know, routine to help with that. And the gym's a huge part of that. I mean, it just is. It's like one of the things that resets my day. I get going. I'm often driving like before the sun's coming out. I take my pre and it's like I throw either like, you know, screamo music on or something motivational. It's like, let's go.
Yeah.
And
get lost in the world.
And it's like you don't have to think about anything. You have one focus. Or you're like, you know what, I'm going to get some of this anger out in a productive manner. And that's the way I use it. You know, and it's like one of my buddies that I work out with, before I kind of got, you know, my back hurt, but, you know, it's also kind of breaking down barriers. Like I can only get 1 rep of this. And you're like, no, you're going to do 5.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you're like, why did I put that mental restraint on this when like I didn't have to? It's like, has someone truly gone till failure?
Yeah.
Have you truly stuck to something to see it all through, you know, loved the journey and you're happy with what happened on the outside? Because however much you put in, that's what you're getting out. And it's like, if you can just translate that on a very small scale, you're going to start improving things.
Yeah.
And some people, like when they tell me, they're like, oh, I made this change. Very subtle. Doesn't have to be a whole lot. They're like, I feel amazing. It's like, true. But I think you're starting to feel more normal.
Yeah.
You forget what normal is. Like I don't know what the percentage is, but I guarantee people are operating at like 50 or 60%, you know, from their norm. They've just been okay with, and I can't sleep. So I'm just going to accept that I just can't sleep well. There's probably a reason.
And then you use the quicker things to be able to fix it. And that's the weird thing that I've been feeling in life lately is just, again, accepting that journey. And like you said, accepting the downtimes. And that's what I've tried to understand is that like, look, this is a downtime. It's going to be a downtime. It's supposed to be a downtime. And what do I need to do? I need to like soak it in and learn from it. And trying to figure out those ways. We go, you know, up and down and up and down and up and down. Well, the goal is to get to like where those up and downs aren't as up or aren't as down. And that's what those medicines do in a second. And people have like, there's been so many people in my life that love me and support me and like always have the conversation about, you know, going on some sort of antidepressants and different things like that. And I'm like, I struggle to do that knowing that I know how to get, and again, it's not really fair. It's not an excuse, but like, I know what the right thing to do is. The right thing is to work out and meditate and journal. For me, like those are my 3 things. I know what they are. I know what works. When I get away from them, I'm not doing great. When I do them, I do fine.
Right.
So it's like,
there are tools that, 100%. So,
and that's the thing. There's always getting to sit down with people just through this. And then also just like my entire life, I've always had these types of conversations where getting to feel people. And like, I'll never forget when we lived in Limerick, just getting to hang with Chris a little bit more. And we just, there was like 1 or 2 summers where we like, he ended up coming over, hanging out with Eric a lot. And then like Eric was even home, he'd come hang out with me and we just chill and we kick it. And it's just like to be able to be such a pure, wonderful soul. I haven't, again, same thing. Haven't talked to him since. But again, you know, when you think about those people, they bring this positive light and feeling just to you, just by thought. And that's something that there's an impact that people can make just by that. 100%. And that's something that they'll never see. And hopefully, you know, be able to like acknowledge now and hear people talk about it. And that's, I talk about it all the time on here with my brother, Eric. Like, dude, like he's a year and a half younger than me. I look up to him. He's always been my like younger, older brother. And there's so much to learn from people. And whether it's, again, like you said, in different aspects of life, like trying to pick something up. And that as I get older, I'm just like, oh my God. And as I was talking, I've mentioned Jake Scott now twice, but he's got this podcast where he teaches at the Gilman School and he brings on high school students. And yes, it's like a nice, you know, it's a private school. They're obviously like good education, but these kids come on and they're brilliant. This girl was talking about empathy the other day and she was a junior. And
my sister could probably talk about that for 15 hours straight.
I laughed. I was like, I didn't even know what empathy was. I don't think I knew what that word meant in high school. And now, of course, like I'm trying to do a lot of like things that have to do with empathy.
Yeah, I think you're innately doing it without even realizing, probably.
Yeah. But like, it's just they're so conscious and again empathetic. And I think a lot of with social media, we see the top 10% and the bottom 10%. It's everybody trying to tell you how to live this perfectly healthy lifestyle, and then it's everybody. It's like, especially with kids nowadays, like kids nowadays.
I know, that's why sometimes I say that.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, do I say that yet?
But it's like, like they're getting on Instagram Live, and like this is the second time I think I brought it up, but like I saw a video the other day of like somebody that was filming in a college dorm room, and the girl looked at the camera and goes, "Watch this," and then spits in the kid's face. And I'm just like, again, you're seeing that bottom 10%.
The trends. I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah. But I also try to think about it, and I try to put myself in that situation. Like I remember Vine. That's the thing. We're a really weird. I always say we're like the MySpace generation, which is a really small.
It took forever to my dad to let me get a MySpace.
Yeah. Thank God that you knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And like but we were in this weird spot, and I always bring it up about like we went home and you saw, were you in your friend's top 8, and you were able to see if you went up or down. And sometimes at a certain age, 6th grade, 7th grade, I never plugged my computer in here. But like 6th grade, 7th grade, what was funny? Bullying kids, being mean to kids, like doing the right thing wasn't cool.
And it seems like it's still not.
Yeah.
And like that's the frustrating part.
And that's the thing is like but is that going to change? It's not.
I don't think it is. Yeah, I agree.
And it shouldn't. I don't think that it should, because I think, again, kids go like that, and then they like eventually they learn from it, and if they don't, well then they're screwed. So if they don't, but that's not like, that's just children. Children are going to do that.
Correct.
And it's just unfortunate. I don't even know if it is unfortunate. Actually, I do think it's unfortunate that they have access to these, this technology that allows them to record these things.
Everything.
Because it's not like, if I was in that situation, I don't know how my life would have gone. I don't like.
But you're also like, I think there's pros and cons to it. I mean, it's like with everything. But it's like, I can't fault them too much because they're growing up with that available, and that's just obviously what they're going to consume, and they're going to, react accordingly.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm not going to act like I know kids. I don't have any kids, hopefully not anytime soon. It's like, I can at least try to rationalize and say, that's what they grew up with. How would we be if we grew up with that? But I think it's really sad that like you're living by likes.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm doing all this. I'm not even in the moment. I'm just going to do this. It's like, I deleted social media, and it was like, I thought I would miss it, and I don't.
Yeah.
And like, I just found myself just scrolling. I'm like, why am I doing this? Like, what is going on? And then I would just see something. I'm like, I didn't need to see that.
Yeah.
I didn't need that to stress me out. I didn't need to think about that. Yeah, you can get really good information. You got information at the tip of your fingertips, right? So it's like we can get all this crazy technology, but so you're going to get some downside to that. I just think people don't quite think about the negative side to the extent without even realizing it.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need that much screen time.
And it's normalized now. And it's not only normalized, it's encouraged from parents. And when I'm on a meeting, what do I, they got to watch this TV show that runs on a loop, Miss Rachel. It's like the craziest thing ever. This lady is like, it's a little nutty, but like, what do you want them to do?
Right.
Are you going to give them a book? Like, are you going to let them go run out? Like, that's the thing is like, now you can't, there's these fears of like, letting,
they're not going to keep up. They're not going to see this. They're not going to include what I don't, whatever it is. And like, I've heard that too. They're like, just give them a tablet. They'll be good. It's like,
but then
I don't know how I would do that. Like, I'm not going to say like, that's a good or bad parenting thing. Like, I have no idea.
Exactly.
I just have to assume like, what's the alternative?
That's the thing. I saw this girl, this, I think she was in like her first year of college, and she made like I'm not even on TikTok, but I ended up seeing it from like Twitter or something. And, she was talking about when she was a nanny, how she would operate with kids. She how she would handle their screen time. And, she talked about, she was kind of like all high and mighty about like, the parents aren't taking, and again, I babysat a kid that it was the same way, where it's like, I would take away his iPad, but I also didn't have to live with them.
Right.
I also
didn't have very short, like we could just do this right now. And then after that,
I was coming from high school and babysitting them for 4 or 5 hours, hanging out with them. Also
we could do this.
I want to chill. Let's go outside. Let's play some lacrosse. Like, let's do some, and he was like, I don't know, 4 or 5 or something like that. But like his parents, when I think about it now, I think I used to judge a little bit harder, but like they came home, they just worked all day. They've got their own situations going on, and they're, whatever. Sure. Like I couldn't understand the stress of what they were dealing with. And although still, without even having kids, I still do hope and pray. And I'm so behind I always wanted to write a book for myself of like advice, how to be a dad, like how I think about it now.
Probably change too.
So that's the thing, is like to remember how I felt when I didn't have kids, to just kind of give like subtle reminders, because there's so many things that even with my own relationship with my father, like when I was growing up, I'm like, I thought he was being hard, or I thought I was like, oh, why are we doing this? And now I'm like, wow, that was sick that you did that. Like even things like
there's a method to the madness, at some level.
Yeah.
I'm like always afraid that I'm going to be the softie and Alexis is going to be she's going to be just by default have to be the strict parent. Yeah. Like they're going to abuse me. And it's, oh God, if I have a girl, it's like, I always like make fun of my dad. It's like, you give Delaney everything, and rightfully so. But like, I for sure will be just as bad, if not worse. Yeah. Just like, okay, you get anything you want. Here you go. Like that's what I'm afraid of. But
so as we joked about, not that either of us have kids.
We're in a really good place to give our opinion on kids. But
But when are you getting married?
Actually, December 22nd.
That's a nice time.
Yeah, Alexis's grandparents are, some health is declining a little bit, and so we just wanted to do something really small to make sure that they could at least see it, be there, and then if we want to have the big thing, we were originally planning 2025, but if it's like somewhat of a destination, they don't travel that much, so it's like we wanted to make sure we at least did that. And I'm not a huge wedding guy, but
most guys aren't.
Like even like going to other weddings, I'm like, okay, but it's because I'm not a big drinker or partier anymore. And I think I got to work on it. Trying to have fun without drinking, or being the drunk Sean that everyone like. You're more fun when you're drunk. It's like, okay, hold on. It's probably true for everybody,
because that's where we saw each other. It was Aiden, Jess, and then Marissa and Sam.
Yep.
But no, it's nice. And again, like I made the joke about, I introduced myself to Mrs. Pope, and then I was like, you don't see so many people for so long. But I did see on like Facebook the other day that I guess you guys got like pictures taken.
Yeah, we just had our engagement photos. Yeah.
And there was a little caption about like, again, like all, the stuff that you empowered Alexis to do, which was beautiful to read and to hear. Cause again, we grew up together. I grew up, Alexis and I are in the same grade, same friend group. And to see that, I didn't realize that you guys met after high school.
We never said a word to each other in high school. I think she might have said some, in passing to Ryan or something, I think they've said, but like not once. I mean, we were in other relationships, so like it was just kind of that, and different grades and different friend groups, so totally, But then I think sophomore year of undergrad, maybe going to junior year, she went on a little trip to Puerto Rico with Sarah and got a little drunk and Snapchatted me when I was working down at the beach in Ocean City.
No way.
Yeah, and then some of the snaps she did save, they're cringy. I mean, they're bad. Like I don't even know how that worked. I don't know how she decided to stick with me. They're pretty bad. So I'm like, dude.
Yeah. And again, Snap at that time in our lives was a little bit different.
Yeah, and I remember like it was, I was working down there, so I was always down there, and then like everybody else would come visit, whether it was weekends or whatever they could, and like I remember maybe a day or two after it happened, and like Chris was there, and we were walking on the beach. I'm like, Chris, guess who Snapchatted me? Alexis Pope. And and then as off and went. We did take a little, I don't even want to call it a break. Like we were in this talking phase.
Because you were in it was long distance at one point.
We've been long distance. We're still technically doing distance, 9 years later, which I think is part of why uniquely, it's the easiest thing for me. I don't even have to give it a second thought. And like my best part of my day, if she is home, is just coming home. Yeah. Like I don't care how long, I don't care if she's sleeping. Happened last night, she was passed out. Yeah. Right. But it's like, it's just a sense of like,
being in somebody's aura, just being in somebody's space. And I think that's something that, as I love talking about love. I love it's so weird. Like some of the topics that I'm most interested in, like love, life, and death. Like I find them all interesting to
big ones.
Yeah, and they all have they're all intertwined in interesting ways. But when I read that caption about again how you've been there for her and how allowed her to chase different things and be a support system. When I read it, I was thinking, knowing this conversation was coming up, I was like. What's the other side of it? Again, knowing what you're doing, knowing the intensity at which your job, again, emotionally has, to be able to have that support system from not only your family, but a partner, I think is
she's my rock. Yeah. I mean, she just is. I mean, there's some times where like I don't necessarily let her in with some of the, job stuff because she just doesn't need it. I know that, it's just not good for her. And talking about that kind of stuff is not going to necessarily be all that helpful. I just kind of have to work through it with how I know how. But like, I could not do anything without her at this point.
That's beautiful. What's something that you've learned from her and from?
She's so selfless, man. I mean, she just, no matter what it is, she cares about family. She's like, no matter what it is, even with like my family, my aunts and uncles, cousins, like she's always so ready to just do family events and be fully engaged. And, I definitely, because part of that, when I do have time off, like I'm so disengaged. So like, she always kind of doesn't yell at me in it. Like we don't fight. Like we might have a disagreement here and there, but like I think the biggest part is because we've done long distance and we've made it through like basically what most people probably couldn't. It just is we communicate. And I think that's the biggest thing. If something's really upsetting her, sometimes I have to pry it out of her. Sometimes I'm like, if she's quiet or like something changed, I'm like, what's up?
Yeah.
And she like might take me 100 times to ask her, and finally she says something. But like the distance, I mean, she's in her rotations now, and it's like I think for her, it's just so easy to love her and knowing that she's got my back. And I think the biggest thing is just like having someone that has your back no matter what takes so much off of whatever it is. I think it's different for everybody. And I haven't had to think twice about it in 9 years. And that's like the coolest thing. It's like, I think I was having a talk with like my dad when I was getting some pressure to do the ring from everybody.
Yeah.
My dad was like, can you live without her? And I was like, no, I can't. There's no way. And so, when I don't not like talking about love, I think it's just one of those that like, it's something that
doesn't exactly come up in like day-to-day conversation.
Yeah, and like I think we've definitely gotten to some, I don't want to call them ruts, where like maybe we've felt like roommates, or like maybe we've just gotten kind of into our schedules and we kind of lose track of some other stuff, and we make it known, and like she's done a really good job kind of saying, hey, like this is how I'm feeling. I think we both have different love languages, and I think we just work as a unit. Like we just work as a team. Like it's not going to be perfect. It's, but if we can get through whatever we need to get through, it doesn't matter. And that's the way I think we operate, know? And I think that's kind of, part of what's so special is like, I do have to, I think, push her a little bit, and I wake up grinding in the way that I do. I've toned it back a little bit because I was burning out, and she's like, hey, like you're not the same person. Like you need to take a look and like you need to figure out why you're burning out, because this is not you. And so then that was a big step into why I switched my job and just said, you know what, I got to focus on what matters. And it's, kind of going into my, personal life. So it's like, I can't do that. But yeah, she just, she's always there. She's always so happy. And like, I want to give her everything she deserves. And it's like a motivator for me. It's like, I just, if I have to work 20 hours, I don't care. Like, let's go. And then if that means that she doesn't have to work, if she doesn't want to, fine with me. Yeah. But there's no way she's like, I have to work. And she's so motivated. She's so smart. And I think that's the exciting thing, is just watching her excel at everything she touches. And sometimes she's a little hesitant to dive into things because she might not be good at it, because she wants to be really good at everything just like everybody else. But I'm like, you will be good at it. Yeah. Like, just because that's the way she is. Whether it's school, she's so good at school. Everything she does, every place she goes into, it's like, at some point, I hope she sees that at some point, but it's the best thing that I see all the time. Yeah. And it's like, if I can be your personal hate man all the time and just making sure you don't have whatever you need to worry about, like I try to pay for everything. She doesn't want me to. Yeah. She never asked me for anything. And I'm just like, please let me, like, please. Yeah.
It's so funny.
That's why I'm here.
It's so funny. That's so funny that you say that, because it's as I'm doing this, I mentioned I'm writing a paper on men's mental health, and a lot of what men, it's like work, providing, and family is like the two things, like feeling like you have a purpose. And I think that that's something that a lot of guys struggle with when they don't have that something to serve. And whether that's physically, whether you're doing, again, like manual labor, things like that, like whether you're doing that or in relationships. And a lot of people, I think I see that people, and probably myself at times too, like if you identify with the relationship and that is your sole purpose, that becomes tough. But then when kids or like when guys have like a family and things, like things start to change. And as you said about going through ups and downs in a relationship, like we talked about earlier about ups and downs and and they kind of start to even out a little bit. Like that's what a relationship is. You're not always going to be that in love first year honeymoon phase.
Marriage is hard.
It's
not that I'm married. Well, I'm going to be married in 34 days.
You've been together long enough,
Yeah. And it's like, that's why, like, to me, I've kind of said this not in a joking way. It's like, I don't think marriage changes anything other than a piece of paper, and you start getting joint accounts. It's like, for me, I thought we've had a partnership for a really long time, and it's like she's so motivated in her own way that, like, everyone's relationship dynamic is different. Like maybe the guy's the provider and then the woman has to take care of everything else, whatever it is, both are working, vice versa, whatever it is. But it's like she's so driven in her own personal goals, whether she knows it or not, that it's like, I don't have to worry about that. Like she's so capable more than she probably knows. And I'm just here to say, hey, if you need me, here we are. If you want to listen to me, here we go. And I just, I take so much happiness from her. I just want to be around her. Yeah. That's all it is. Like, I just want to be around you. She might say a little different sometimes with the laundry and the dishes, but I'm trying to work on it. We're not all good at everything. But I definitely need to, I think the cleaning is probably where I drop off a little bit. But
it's funny. I think when we kind of touched on it in the beginning about your personality changing over time and your, not necessarily personality, because I see it now, like you still have the same personality, but the calmness. Alexis, for those that do not know her personally, has such a
she's so calm all the time.
Calm, and she's been like that since we met. I met her probably
so
eighth grade. Like she's been that way the whole time, and it's just again so like kind, sweet to other people, and it's a feeling. It's like again her one of her best friends, Jess Finansky. Like dude, she's the sweetest person. Like just to see, I saw her. We were all at the same table at that wedding, and like it's just like you're. When you're surrounded by people like that, you just want to be kind.
Yeah.
You just want to.
She's kind to everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, and like when her real personality or part of her personality shines, we're like, we just are goofy. Like we can be so goofy and it's ridiculous, but it's like, at that point, it's so much fun. And like, we just, whether we are watching a series or something, whether we're just like doing some stupid stuff, like it just is natural. It just rolls and like, I don't have to think about it. And like, I want to make any issue work. And so does she. And it's like, I think that's why it works so well.
Yeah.
She's so ready to problem solve. She's always ready to kind of meet in the middle. It's not like, I have to bend to her or she's got to bend to me with certain problems. We try to meet in the middle, or it's like, all right, I see your point of view. If this really bothers you, then we'll have to deal with it. And it's like, I think that, we're still trying to work through it. It's like, I'm not saying
it never
perfect,
stops.
It's like, it's constantly something. And like, we've done long distance for 9 years. When I was in undergrad, JMU, Penn State, 4 or 5 hour drive, not a huge deal, but far enough. Right. And then I went to vet school. She graduated. I was on an island for 3 years. And then I went to Wisconsin for another year. And then she was home. And then now she's in her clinic. So she went to E-Town. She couldn't do the commute. So now we're an hour and 15 minutes away. And now she's in her rotations. And now she's in Philly for 5 weeks. Right. Yeah. So I still get to see her, but it's not like we're living together.
Yeah.
And it's like, we're about to be married. And I don't think we've lived together for more than a year.
Yeah.
But it's so easy when we do. Other than the fact that I'm just gonna have to be a little cleaner.
Yeah,
probably all it really is. But
it's so funny what you said earlier about I think there's I don't know if it's Toby Keith or something like that, but there's a song like it's not the one that you can live with, it's the one you can't live without.
Yeah, she's for sure that.
And it's as again with Aiden and Jess, with Sam and Marissa, talking to them and just learning like they said, I was like, oh, like how's the married life? It's like no different.
Yeah, and that's what, I mean. And she's again, she's like, are you excited? It's like it's not that I'm not, you know what I mean? It's just like,
dude, guys and girls crack me up because I've heard the same exact thing.
It really, to me, it's just like, it's not that I'm not excited. I mean, obviously this is what I wanted since I proposed. Yeah. So it's like, this is what we're doing. Like, this is who I want to grow with, who I want to make a family with, who I want to, do whatever we want to do together. And it's like, if it's just me and her, I'm good.
And that's the other thing. It's like back to guys, feeling this purpose from work and from providing. Women naturally have this, and again, this is like something where it's like if you clip this and say it, it's like the wrong thing to say today, today's world. But like naturally, women's purpose again, this is going to sound bad,
I'm with you.
but
Good thing you get to edit as much whatever you want.
No, we won't edit it because it's just true. It's like that's naturally they want to, or that they can carry babies and provide life where, again, men weren't as needed for that because they had their selection.
Right.
So like they have this innate, like that's the exciting part. And I think that that's why women get so excited with marriage and kids and this and that. And it's just like with us, it feels like, again, I'm single. So like, I don't even know, but like having this, I don't know if it feels like duty, but it's just like, that's what
there's still some instinctual stuff that men and women are going to, feel, do whatever it is. Right.
Have differently.
And I think, what's many of the awesome things that I love about her is just like, again, she's so goal oriented. No matter what she does, she's successful, yet she still has that ability. Yeah. And I think she's just all around the best person in the world. To me, and that's where it's like, I'm so lucky. And it's like, I'm glad you got a little drunk that day. Yeah. I'm really glad you did that.
So wait, I want to tie in you said earlier about having this like fear of death. And there's a book on that shelf by Ernest Becker. It's a philosophy book it's called The Denial of Death. And it's about how man is so scared of death that fear drives all of us in all of the things that we do. And whether it's like, again, like this creation that I'm making, I always talk about I want this to be something that my kids are going to be able to go back and watch and learn. And technology allows, whether it's writing, whether it's cave paintings, whether it's this.
There's some form of it.
It allows you and a message or your thoughts to live on forever in certain ways, obviously. For sure. Caves come down and you lose that. But it's like this striving to be immortal for man. And one of the other ways that you can solve that problem outside of a thought-led creation is a physical creation of children and being able to have children. Yeah. And is that something that I guess I would love to just hear more about your fear of death.
Yeah, I don't really know where I think after my great grandmother died and I saw my first funeral open casket, I was like, this is like what happens. Like,
how old were you?
I think I was in sixth grade, seventh grade. I don't know if I was in high school yet. I think it was right before high school at some point. And I nobody in my family died, no friends, nobody that I knew passed away or enough for me to be exposed to it. Yeah. And I think it just boils down to, it's just like, it's always tough. And I still like at night, I get really anxious sometimes. It's like, holy shit, at some point it's my time. And it's like, then I see it every day during work. It's like, well, this isn't necessarily helpful for that, but I think, I try to spin it in the sense that it's like, I love life so much that it's like, I never want that to end. But I think I've had this conversation with some of my friends. It's like, I think the beauty in life is that it's not forever. Yeah. And it's like, I think that's where it's like, I try to take a step back and just, if I'm all of a sudden reacting out of emotion or whatever. And like, I've seen some stuff where it's like with relationships, it's like, if you really get mad at that person, it's like, don't, because you only have so much time with them and you don't know what that is. Yeah. And some of that hits me. I'm like, I have to go before her. There's no way. And it's kind of like morbid to think about, but it's like, you have to. I mean, it's a reality, right? So yeah, I don't know where it came from. It really did affect me when I was younger. Like I would not want to sleep over at, I remember like Getley, like we were supposed to sleep over at his house. I was like, I can't. Like I just want to be around my family. And I don't know where that kind of came from, but that's just kind of how I've always been. And I go through stretches where it's like not a big deal, or even if I do start thinking about it, it's not a big deal. I think it's just gonna be something I'm gonna hopefully at some point do what I want to where it's like I'm okay. Yeah. I don't know when that'll be, if that'll ever happen, but at least I think that's part of why I'm just like, let's just get after it. It's like if I worked till 1 a.m. and I gotta, get in at 7 a.m. for my next shift, I'm in the gym at 5. You get in the conversation that sleep's not gonna, you're not gonna sleep well, but it's like, I have to. I just have to try and do these things. And, I want to own a hospital or two by the time my career's done, at some point. But I'm also trying to not rush anything. So yeah, I don't know where that came from. It just kind of hit me. And then like, losing Kelsey and JP, like that hit a little harder being our age. And it's like, whoa. Yeah. Like this is delicate.
Yeah. And that's I've talked about it a couple times here and it's weird. It's come up like more often as I'm recording these, because again, there's so much reflection done in these conversations and thinking back. so again, for those that don't know us, the Kelsey Kramer, we lost. She was a junior in high school, and we lost her to a car accident, and it was a tragic accident. And I have spoken about it I try to speak of it in a positive light, which sounds pretty crazy when you say it like that. But the amount, I always say, like, Kelsey lived a lifetime in her shortened years. She lived more than anybody. A lot of, like, again, the people that she touched, the influences she had,
people still talk about the smile. It's just like, it's just like that kind of stuff you don't realize.
The number 18, like, it's still, and
I
as
used
I
that
was
in lacrosse when I was playing that up Penn State, it's like,
and that's, I do want to talk about that, specifically is when I've told the story on here about how lucky we were to be together and to mourn as a group and to mourn all together. It was a big group.
And that was the unique thing.
Yeah. And when I talk about it, I've told the story of, like, we all got together. We spent probably the next 48 hours all together at our friend's house. And that was your house.
I was going to say, we all crashed, I think.
In the barn. Yep. And it's like, to be able to be together in that way and to do a mixture of numbing and feeling at the same time as young kids, I think I get chills just thinking about it.
And I remember the morning after we got the news, we all woke up and, like, we were sitting out, by the bridge in the bungalow or whatever. And, like, I was sitting on the table and I just, like, put my, head in my shirt. I think it was Nicole Monk that was just, like, rubbing my back or putting her hand on my back. And it was just like, at that point, it didn't matter who was with what or, who was doing whatever. It's like, we are going to be here for each other. And I think that was kind of the crazy thing about it. Looking back on it, it was so unique that we didn't have to do that alone or in a smaller group. It was like, who knows how many. I mean, it was a big group of very close-knit people. And then I remember the funeral when we went to bury her. I had to leave. I couldn't. I ran and I broke down and I was like, this sucks.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's like, it's cliche obviously, but it's like that stuff didn't help with me, having a fear of death and, that kind of stuff. But it's like also realizing, like, how we still talk about her, all these years later. Yeah. It's like, if you can do that on some level, you've done something.
Yeah.
And, the only real, tragedy is, like, what would she have accomplished?
Yeah.
And that's the hard thing.
And that's the thing, is it feels like she did accomplish. And again, there's so much missed out, but at the same time, there's so much accomplished, and there's so much, and there's a reason that any child lost at that age is tragic, but there is a different. Yeah, there was a different level. There was a different.
The whole school shut down.
The whole and it was like
it rocked anybody that was remotely close or even kind of barely touched. It was just it shocked everybody.
And we had such an incredible. I think about where we went to school. I think that we had such an incredible, not only parents, not only kids, but like teachers too. I remember that day. It was just so. It was. Nobody knew what was going on. Right. I remember it was that, like, Friday, the football game got canceled.
So you could leave school.
Yeah.
You can leave,
it was whatever you needed. It was at anything. And, like, that's the thing. It's like nobody wanted to.
No. Yeah. No, I mean, it was one of those where it's like, I don't really think that our, school really dealt with anything like that in a really long time. And it was just like, it came out of nowhere. Like, she was just driving home and it was like, wait, what? And then, like, maybe there was some time where we like, maybe she pulls through, maybe she doesn't. And all of a sudden, obviously, she passed. So I was like, it just hit so hard and so fast. And if we didn't have who we had and how we were able to get through it, and, like, with the lacrosse team and coming around to just, like, devoting that season or the rest of the season,
the whole school, think about it, the field hockey team, the soccer team, the wrestling team.
Purple was scattered all throughout, everything. And either the sticker on the helmet or, I think I put it on my shoes, I put on tape on my,
purple
face
laces,
mask, whatever it was. And only a few people could probably do that. I try to look and say, who else could have done that if that were to happen? Yeah. Not that we needed that to happen, but it's like, who else would have we done that for? Yeah. I'm sure there was a very big group of people actually that we probably would have done the same, but there was something.
There was something in love. I mean, the love that she had.
Something.
My mom always joked about it that she was, every time she came downstairs, Kelsey was in the middle of the couch, and that she was the glue that brought people together from different groups, and that it triggered something, I think, in me personally, and then I think in reflecting, I think a lot of people of just like waking up and being like, what matters and what doesn't, the crush that you have, or the gossip, or the breakup, or the this or the that, or like the things that are going on, like what mattered and what didn't,
and
the differences.
It did matter
because it's a bond. I mean, it was a traumatic experience.
Yeah.
Like now that we all look past it, and like trauma does bond people, and it was.
I mean, I think for me, it's still hard to rationalize other than, you know what, we can only keep going the way that she would on some level that you're capable of doing. I mean, that's really, I think, all that we can do and talk about it and just say, you know what, we got to keep going forward because that's the only thing she'd want us to do.
Yeah. She'd be so happy and so proud, I think, of all of us. And, I had the same kind of experience when Mike Aston and I sat down and talked about it. And it was just like, I just do believe that these people don't, they leave physically, they don't leave spiritually. And like, 100%. I still think she's looking down like right outside this window, 100%. You know, like she's not,
you feel it.
She's not gone because she lives on within us. And
I think that's part of how we can heal and keep moving. Cause how else can you?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Cause I mean, otherwise it could consume you and, you know, there's, you know, people obviously go through that.
Yeah.
You lose someone really close, but it's like, the support and just, you know, just acting the way she would, you know, no one has that smile, but I try to, you know, we can try and smile as much as we can. We can try and kind of be that bubbly, bouncy personality that's just in everything and everyone likes her.
Yeah.
Right. You know, it's like, you know, if you can touch as many people as you can, you're doing what she would want or what she would be doing.
Yeah.
You know?
And having that influence and carrying it on and somebody that I haven't, you know, been able to either talk about on here and also kind of process even for myself was losing John. And like John,
that would hurt.
For those that don't know, I grew up playing lacrosse. We were on the same attack line.
JP was at my house so much. Yeah, I was at his house.
When I was thinking about it, which is weird, when I wrote all the topics that both JP and Kelsey, the topic was number 18, which was again John wearing 18 after Kelsey passed, and I think back and I was laughing like all that, you know, when he was the bagels, like he had so much. What a special.
He was that guy.
Yeah.
You know, he was such a special dude. He had so much potential. He was so talented, and I just, you know, obviously he got caught up in something that you know just overtook him. You know, and I think that's a really challenging reality for a lot of families. I mean, we lost my uncle to drugs, you know, and I think, you know, I believe that happened before, and it was a realization that like. What hurt me was like, could we have done more? Right. Cause like we went off to school, he was trying to do his lacrosse thing still. Some of the stuff fell through, but he was still trying. And, you know, he was more passionate about lacrosse than I think anybody. Yeah. And he could have gone and done whatever he wanted to. But there's always, I think, something in the back of my mind, like, could we have done more?
Yeah.
You know, like, could we have helped in some way, whatever it was. I mean, it's like, you know, hindsight's 20/20, so that's probably not a good way to look at it.
But I think everybody probably thought that.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And I mean, at some point, you know, obviously, how much help can anybody give?
Yeah.
Is it, you know, not that anybody gave up, but I remember at the funeral, like, Mrs. Pennell was like, John loved you guys.
Yeah.
It's like,
and he was, I mean, that's what you guys had a special bond.
Yeah.
You know? And he was, again, always at your house.
Yeah, he was always there. I mean, you know, lacrosse all the way up through, you know, I think from youth, I think it was U13, maybe U9. But yeah, all the way through, dad coaching us, always over there. I remember like some of the funniest memories is like, since we like Step Brothers came out and like, you know, we watched it in his basement and we couldn't stop laughing. We probably weren't supposed to watch it at that point. Yeah, but we were always there. We were always, you know, he was always over and we were just always, you know, just doing stupid stuff. And what would have happened if, you know, we kept in touch more? You know, not that that's going to, you know, be the make or break, but it's just in the back of my mind.
But like, it's always the thought. And that's something that I was listening to, as I mentioned, my friend Julian Dory's podcast, and he had a guy who was an Army veteran, and he was talking about how he came back from serving, and then like he was like home for 2 weeks, and they asked him to go back, and he said no because he just like couldn't at that point. And that somebody in his unit died on the mission, and he was like, well, what if I went, and what if I was there, what if things would be different? And again, like people, you just naturally have that thought because you the, you know, one way or another, like what, and it is that's one that I don't think that I've processed enough for, because John and we had this weird, like, I think on the lacrosse field, this is kind of what's happened with Sam Gargis and I too. Like you play with each other for so long that you have this sixth sense. I could close my eyes and I knew where John was.
100%.
If you go back and watch, like the reason that I was able to play in college was John. You know what I mean? Like there's this.
He made everyone else better on that field. You know, and you know, even though he was as lazy as he could have been with the practice laps, and he did everything he could not to do them, but
talent
he could
out of his
ball.
ears.
Yeah, no, he could absolutely ball, and you know, and
you could pick up a hockey stick and be just as good at volleyball. I always joke.
Yeah, he's just one of those freakish athletic dudes, you know, and you know, it's just, I think it's a reality that I think a lot of people are dealing with in this day and age of, you know, addiction, whether it's alcohol, whether it's drugs, whether who knows what it is, but it's like, it's such a real problem that I don't think anybody, you know, you don't have enough support.
Yeah.
And not that he didn't have support. I know he definitely did. I know, you know, people were probably doing all that they could. And unfortunately, you know, whatever happened. But there's always that, could we have?
Yeah.
And if we did this, and I think that's hard because you're right. Like, how do you not think about that stuff? But he also lived, you know, until, you know, it happened.
Yeah.
You know, and he really was, he cared about his friends. All he wanted to do was hang out with his friends and play sports.
Yeah.
You know, that's just, and he was loved by so many different groups. I think that was the other thing. He would bop in and out of all these groups as if like he was the center.
Yeah.
And
have fun and laugh and make jokes. And he was like, he had a very, very funny, unique sense of humor that was like, I don't want to say that it was negative, but it was just like,
and him and his relationship with teachers, he would always kind of throw out. I'm just like, But yeah, man, it's definitely wild, and it's definitely, you know, I know a lot of us miss both of them. And I think it's partly shaped how we all operate, whether we realize it or not.
Yeah.
Like I was at Penn State when it happened, and I remember studying with my lacrosse jacket on, like my Pac-10 championship jacket, and I was like I just kept saying JP. I was like, what? It's
such a again, it's weird. I don't know if we all have, like, again, everybody processes things differently, and I can't remember. I think it might have been like within this year, I had a dream and he was in it, and I got to like say goodbye in a way. And again, like that was something so wild, so wild.
So where did that come from?
Exactly. And it's like, and is that, again, you're sleeping, but you're conscious of it. So it's clearly laying in your subconscious somewhere.
For sure.
And there's certain things, and it's same kind of thing with Kelsey. It's like, I hope, you know what I mean? I hope he's excited that we're sitting down doing this.
100%.
I hope that, you know, and
definitely
his family,
yeah,
I send all my love that I can. Like, you know, we look, and that's the other hard part is like, you want to talk about these things, and it's hard to talk about. It's hard to talk about from just a law standpoint, and then also
I've talked about them in years.
Yeah. And with drugs as well, it's like it's a reality that people face, and what can we do to help others, and bringing attention to it.
Yeah.
And talking about it in a way. Again, it's just like, I don't know. I don't think that I am. I want to speak of people in a way that brings happiness and love and joy. Yeah. And there's certain topics with situations like this. It's like, what can you do besides just talk about it, period? And I don't know what the right way to do is. Like, I don't know.
And I don't think there is one. Yeah. I mean, you could probably talk to therapists and like follow the whole, like, you know, if there's a grief protocol or whatever you want to call it. But it's like, I think you have to move through it in order to get to the happiness, the joy, and everything else. Like, how are you going to be able to experience that without truly dealing with or finding a way to live with, or whatever your way of dealing with it is? And I don't even know if I could put it into words how I do it. I mean, it's just, you got to keep going the way that they would. And I don't, you know, knowing both of them, I don't think that they would want us to not. Right.
Yeah. How do you think that again, like back to our, you know, how we grew up, our high school and everything, how do you think that shaped who you are, who you were? Because we played, again, back to you know, playing lacrosse.
Yeah.
We had such an incredible group of people.
It was just fun. I mean, it really was. I mean, we probably could have paid attention to some other stuff, like me with more academic stuff, but like, you know what, we ended up where we ended up. And like when I look back on it, like it was always hanging out with somebody or a group of people all the time. And like, we never not had anything to do. There was always a party. There was always a hangout. There was always, this, that, and the other. Or we had a big, lacrosse tournament where we had a big game, or it was practice, or whatever it was. There was always something, and so we were just exposed to just good people all the time, and that's why I think a lot of like why we all are still kind of hanging around. Like I think that's just it's comfortable. I think that's part of it too, but like. We would always be outside. If it was raining, we would hook the sled up to the back of the 4-wheeler and we would go mudding and just like sling people in donuts and see if you can get them off. And we would do that with snowing or if it was snow. And it's like, that kind of stuff. And then, waking up and like, going to the field early and then just, having those rivalry games. It's just like, there's nothing like sports. Yeah. That's like the one thing I miss about high school is definitely that. Especially now that like everything hurts. But, it's hard to describe. I think it's just like it gets back to where we have people that if we don't talk to it for a while, I can text and it's like we never left off. Yeah.
And that's the again, doing all this reflecting is like there's so many people, and there's so many people that you don't see, and then when you do, it's like it brings back all this like flood of memories. And like you just said, with trying to sling people off the sled, like I remember that was the most fun thing that we would do. Those hills, being all over, being outside, and it's funny. I think that in getting older, I don't know if I appreciated it then, but clearly I was in the moment enough to now appreciate it. So that's the thing is we were so present at that time that we did. Like I can literally see it. I can see myself walking in the field. If you're looking at your house from the barn to the back right of your property, being all the way at that corner. And then it's like, I can put myself there. And so clearly like those memories are so etched.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and it was like, I think my parents were so welcoming, and they always were just like, have whoever you want, and like obviously as long as people were respectful. But it's like, no, come on in. Here's all the food you want. Here's this. Here's all the snacks. That's why like all the wrestlers hated during their season because they couldn't eat all the snacks just hanging out.
God, you guys had you had
that. God, it was like a mission for my mom to make sure that damn jar was like just full with random stuff, and it was just something that looking back on, very blessed. Did we know it in the moment? Maybe. It doesn't mean we didn't have fun. Doesn't mean that we didn't enjoy it. But I think that's part of maturing as you start going, that was like just no thought, pure fun, didn't have anything else to worry about. That's what we were doing.
Yeah. And you had such a, like, I also remember very specifically, you had that like little front room, that little sun Like you could have,
the mud room.
You could have like a little breakfast. And then the mud room table. As well. It's like the love that was in the air is again, I think that's also with like big families too. It's just like there's so much going on, and it's so funny seeing. It's like you brought up Getley, and it's just like the younger siblings. It's like you see them go to college, and you see them.
It's like, so what does that make me?
I was laughing, Max, if you don't mind me bringing you up with this. We were driving back in the car the other night, and he was talking about feeling like either if he's behind us. I was like, Max, dude, you're crushing it. Like you're like the things that you're doing at your age is ridiculous. There is no comparison to anybody or anything because everyone's on their own path. And it's your path, and it's supposed to. It's funny, like analogy to bring it up, like the slingshot engage from Talladega Nights. Like there's gonna be times where you're holding, pulling, and then you're gonna let it go, and then you're gonna speed forward, and everybody's got to take their path at their own.
Yeah, and like I forget who it was. It might have been even on a Rogan podcast, but it was just like it kind of stuck. It was like people are so like you take 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and they just like focus on that 1 step back. It's like if you do that enough times, you know how far down the road you're going to be. Even if you step back 1 step or 2 or 3, who cares? Yeah, like it's not going to be this like beautifully linear progression of like we're gonna get from A to B without any of the peaks and valleys, ups and downs. Yeah, and it's like,
and sometimes it's 10 steps back. Yeah. And that's the thing is, as we were talking earlier about that, my thoughts on everything with the homeless population, and like I think that there's some times where 10 steps back can provide 20 steps forward, but like sometimes people need to break, and sometimes people do break, and that's.
It's like you're evolving, you're adapting, you're learning new skills. And it's like, if you just simply create, everyone can operate on motivation. It's easy. Once you then lose that, you need to have a discipline. You need to have the discipline of like doing something that you don't want to do, but you have to do, and you do it anyway, like you like it. Yeah. It's like, that's the ultimate goal. Like, not saying that I do that, but it's like, there's some days where I'm too sore or like I'm just exhausted and I'm like, I don't want to. And it's like, then I think about some of the things like the stupid little reminders, like longevity is muscle mass. I mean, it's proven. So it's like, you know, I need it for my mental health. What am I going to do today if I don't do the gym? It's like, just go. Like cardiovascular, whatever it is. Like there's little subtle things. I'm like, get your ass up. So it's like, if you can at least learn however you want to operate that way, when you get those steps back, let's say you know, like for me, it's like I'm constantly injured. Everybody jokes about it, but it's like I always make a big stride with whatever my goals are. Huge injury. And it's like, I can only go up. Like, what am I going to just gonna stop? And so it's like, that's my example for it. Like everyone, I'm not going to say you need to go to the gym, even though you know,
yeah, it's funny as again, being, you know, focusing on the topic of mental health, I think over time, I'm going to get more and more like physical health is so key to that. And so that's another thing. I think, it's funny when like there are people who are injury prone over the course of life. And that's a lot of it. This is a little woo woo assumption, but like comes from a place of, things mentally, like it's tied together. It's tied together in some way. And I can't even speak at a high enough level to make it make sense, but there's certain people that just always get injured. And I'm sure that there's some sort of, again, like tie.
Yeah, there definitely is. I mean, I'm a big believer that, you know, the mental aspect and the physical aspect merge at some point. And just because one's doing well and the other's not, I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean the other one's at its full potential in some sense. So it's like, if my body's not operating right, how do I feel like I'm going to have enough energy? How am I going to have that mental sharpness and be like, hey, I'm at my best? And it's like, I think they go hand in hand. I think you can individually work on both of them, but at the same time, at some point you can be like, how do I merge these?
Yeah.
And you don't really have to work on that. I mean, it's going to do that, you know, by itself anyway, but it just gets back to like, there's so much that people don't even realize they're doing, and they don't even necessarily want to give the effort to try for a little bit.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh God, you might get so much out of it, or find something that you will. And like, I do a bunch of ice baths. Oh my God, I love those things. Yeah. I mean, it's getting a little challenging that it's colder out now. So that's my next challenge, is getting used to that. But it's like everybody's response to cold therapy or cold shock is the same. So you are without a doubt going to experience that crazy increase in dopamine. It's going to be sustained over multiple hours. You get that mental fortitude build up. You're going to get used to doing things that you don't want to do.
Yeah.
It's like, do I like jumping in that? No. But I know afterwards it's 3 minutes to 6 minutes of absolutely this is going to suck. And then afterwards you're going to get all sorts of highs from it.
Yeah.
And it's like, I've tried to get people to do that. And they're like, no, I can't. Yeah. No way. I'm like,
and you always can.
It's just like, what? And again, it's like, I got to tone it back for a lot of people. I talk about it way too much. And it's like, it's just like, I just wish people gave it a try and gave it to a point where they can make their assumption like, this doesn't do it for me, and give it a long enough time, or say, this is awesome.
Yeah.
Or I feel so much
And what
better.
you're doing is you're testing your mental and your physical fortitude. You're pushing your body and realizing what it's capable of. Like you were saying earlier about being able to do, you know, maxing out on a rep and then realizing that you could have done 5, or that you can go to the gym if you're tired. You can do these things. Like one of my things is fasting, and that's I've done up to, I think the longest I've done is like 4.5 days. Like,
I want to try a 72 hour, and I haven't done it, and I don't know why.
And it's people
Brian and I talk about
people are like, what, you know, how do you do that? I'd never be able to do that. You can.
Your body go through autophagy, and it kind of gets rid of all those dead cells and all the, you know, bad cells, and your body's basically resetting itself.
Yeah, and
it's great for everything.
You're like day one's tough, or not day one. Like I at one point, and I haven't been as consistent, but at one point I did it like once a week. So I do every Monday. I wouldn't eat. So like Sunday night, Tuesday morning, and I would feel great. It's like cleansing your body. And again, I was telling you, like I haven't been eating the healthiest, so it's like I need to be able to do that.
Yep.
But the longer ones, like day 2 is kind of tough. And then day 3, it's like the most natural energy in the world. It's like,
that's what everybody says.
It's like having
once
Red
you get
Bull.
past that little sort of period, it's like, it's like a blissful period.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that Ryan and I have talked about trying to do. Why I haven't done it, I have no idea. You know,
but again, it's similar to
swallow my own words and just do something that I'm like, hey, this might stink, but let's try it.
Yeah. And then you enjoy it. And then it's doing other stuff. I don't know if I've talked about it on here, but like I used to, through COVID, when I went on this health craze, I would put like headphones like this on, blindfold myself, and ride the Peloton for as long as I could. And it would end up being like an hour and a half, almost 2 hours. And it was trance that you get into. You get into this deep, again, you like, you cut off certain senses and then you start looking within and you start feeling these different things. And that's, again, you're hijacking certain systems to be able to look into other systems. And I
think that's a remarkable thing about just trying some of this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, whether it's, meditation, whether it's, doing all these stuff, whether it's, you talk about people doing like psychoactive drugs. It's like, there's so much.
Yeah.
And it's like, obviously there's differences between all of them, but like, for that kind of stuff, it's like setting, like I'm going to cap it here. Like, you're so capable of doing way more if you just tried. Yeah. Or just don't be afraid of it. And like, I'm at fault for that too. Like, but like, there's sometimes like, I met this guy, Brett, who's a mental health, he's a sports mental health counselor. He's very intelligent. He's, really, really good at his job, but like we've had very in-depth conversations, but there's like some reps where it's like, he says I blank out, and like afterwards I go for multiple reps, or like I go for a max, or I go for something that I didn't think I was going to do. And it's just completely blanking it out. And he's like, what the heck? What was that? It's like, I call it my dark place. Whether that's right or wrong, I'm just like, you just channel anger, sadness, stress, anxiety, whatever the heck it is. At least for me, it's like, that's also why the gym for me is so important.
Yeah. Cause you said earlier, I didn't, you were rolling, so I didn't want to stop you, but that you said it like to channel that place of anger. And that's like, a really,
at least for me, it's like, whether it's anger at certain clients, angry at, maybe I'm not where I want to be in terms of my own goals, like whatever you're getting angry about, it's like, how can I channel that? If I can't get it to go away, how do I channel that? And that's what at least I've been trying to do. And that's what the gym does. Yeah. Yeah. Haven't necessarily been able to do that a lot with my back, but we're getting back into it. And, my coaches, we're doing a lot of rehab. So it's like, I know I'm going to get back there. I know I've been injured multiple times before. It's like part of my MO, but I just think trying to utilize tools, I've, mentally sort of tried to say, hey, how am I going to handle this? And I think most of how I can operate within my, job is because of that. Like, if I just went home, obviously I don't have any kids. If I just like didn't have anything to do, I think I'd have a problem.
It's too much time. It's too much,
but like something. Alexis always like, you spend way too much time at the gym on my off days. It's like, even if I'm off, I still get up at 5 a.m. Yeah. Like, I still don't change it. It's my, waking up in the morning and like getting stuff done when most people are sleeping is also kind of a big thing for me. It's like, I like doing stuff that people like, why would you do that? Yeah. Like, no, if you work out at 8, you work out at 4, who cares? Like 4 p.m., whatever. But it's like, for me, it's like, let me do this. Let me kickstart my day. Yeah. I, get a really good warm up in. I'll hit the sauna for 30 minutes. Like, I do heat and cold there. Like, it's like, just, that's my thing. Yeah. Like, let me just do that.
And first thing in the morning too is an essential. When I was going through the health and fitness journey, like, I always joke, like, on a Saturday morning, I'd wake up and run 7 miles. It's like, you can do whatever you want after that. You can do whatever you want. Yeah. You won the day. You won. There's nothing that's going to be harder.
9 o'clock. Yeah. And it's like, most people are waking up right now.
Yeah.
And then it's like, now what do I want to do? Yeah. Like, if I really feel like doing anything, or if I have to do something, it's good.
Yeah. And I also would think that people, like, you have this energy, and we're all trying to figure out how to use it, how to maintain it, how to not top out. Yeah. And also not bottom out at the same time. And it's like, push your body. And then again, it is weird when you push your body, you do get more energy. When you do things that drain your energy, they somehow give you more energy. And I don't know enough about that, but I do want to take a left turn into back to some of the animal stuff. Sure. As we're talking about all this stuff with humans. Like, what have you seen from a lot of this health and wellness, and, like, as you mentioned, especially with psychoactive stuff, like they test on animals. And that was something I was like, wait, like, have you seen it? Have you participated in any of this? And then also, is there kind of an opinion from vets as an industry of like whether this is right or wrong? Because again, as you're talking about grass-fed animals, like there's obviously animals that are being treated terribly. Right. There's animals that are being pumped up. Right. And these are all the things that, like, do I care about them? Yes. Do I think about them? No.
Yeah, it's always kind of an internal fight. Like, I've jokingly said I want to go vegetarian just for the sense of, like, obviously we're doing meat products, and like, but like, the way I kind of say is, you know what, I'm going to honor them and kind of do it right. And they're going to obviously be killed for meat products regardless. So, but I've never been a part of animal testing. I think maybe had one rat lab where we were doing something, and even then I feel really bad. Yeah. And I know I don't even like to call it a necessary evil. Like, I have to assume there's going to be a better way at some point. But for the safety of humans, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And I understand that. Do I like it? Absolutely not. Do I think beagles are some of the greatest dogs that you can get, and they're constantly getting, tested for XYZ?
Really?
And they don't live, they're just in cages, chimps, all that stuff, monkeys. It's like, that bothers me. And so like the only thing that I can do is, because I know I'm not going to stop it. All these petitions are great. If a petition comes across, I'll throw my name at it, like whatever. But I try not to do any animal tested products if I can.
Yeah.
And then I order my food from Dutch Meadows in Lancaster. And I just know that and I've been there, and it's minimally processed. They treat their animals very well. And that's, at least for me, the best that I can, do. And, it's just one of those, in order to advance medicine and keep making these advancements, I think it has to be done.
Yeah.
And I hate saying that.
Yeah.
Like, I really wish at some point we can say, let's not do that and stop using all of these things that we need to, like, that might be harmful for us. Like, on some level, something's probably going to be harmful.
Yeah.
Now, obviously there's new combinations, there's new this, there's new that. But on some level, but again, it gets back to like some of the conspiracy stuff. It's like, they don't really care if it's bad for us.
Yeah.
They want to see how much of it until it's toxic, but they'll still give it to us.
Yeah.
Like, that's the way it's going to boil down to.
That's the same thing they do with the animals. And that's like, I like looking into like drugs, the effects on the brain and whatnot. And a lot of the, like, I saw one of the, they gave spiders a combination of, or like a bunch of different drugs, and then they'd see how they spin up a web. And it's like, is it like, I'm not out here like killing animals or killing, like, I don't like doing that stuff either, but like,
Right.
Is that bad? Is it bad that we give a spider cocaine and see what he does? Like, is it like, if we can learn something from
Right.
it, and then hopefully advance society. And again, it's all these things where it's like, there's no answer. There's no right answer.
No,
that's where I try to get to, is in the middle of like, there's not, there's good things and there's bad things.
Always, but I think mostly everything.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point. And that's where it's like, if I can remain in the middle, but obviously if I'm super passionate about something, I will definitely kind of go the other way, just like everybody else. But I think, a big problem today is there's so many extremes.
Yeah.
People are just like forgetting to hone in and be like, hey, there's multiple sides, like if I Google like coffee's good for eyesight, it's going to give me something that's going to say it's good. And then I say coffee's bad for eyesight, it's going to give me something that says coffee's bad for eyesight.
Yeah.
It's like, that's just the information, the consumer information world that we live in. So yeah, it's tough. I hate it. And I just know that health wise, I couldn't go vegetarian.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I don't want to necessarily get into any sort of hot water here, but it's like, there's evidence that vegan is not good for you.
Yeah.
I know people do it. I know some people, it works really well for them, but it's like, there's a lot of evidence that you get deficient in a lot of things.
Yeah.
So like for me, it's a personal, where it's like, if I can make sure they're treated well, if I can make sure I'm not going to use stuff, products that are animal tested, and that's the best that I can do, because there's a 0% chance that we can stop this.
Yeah.
And there's no way.
So this thing I've been struggling with lately is just the more that you learn, the more scary certain things are. God. And it's like,
that's my problem.
You could be convinced one way, 100% one way. And then like 5 years later, or even 5 days later, something else comes out.
Yeah.
The entire other side of the argument. And it's like, do we ever actually know? Like, we thought the earth was flat, like you can prove things scientifically and then be 100% sure. And then something else comes out. Like, everything that we think now is going to be wrong eventually.
Right.
Like, even thinking about like
things change.
Yeah.
It might be right now, but there might be a better version later.
Yeah.
Or something that's not going to create XYZ.
And where we're going, it's funny. Like, we were joking about the Neuralink stuff. It's like, well, all right, well, if you can chip animals, like, all right, is that going to be good? But then when is it going to be bad? And there's going to be advancements, and then there's going to be problems.
Yeah.
We're going to deal with it. And now I think the thing that I'm struggling with too is just like everything's speeding up at a rate that is,
that's right. Yeah.
The exchange of information, the way that we see things. And it's speaking about kind of tying it back to everything with things that are going on politically. It's like when things happen,
it becomes too much.
Yeah.
It's just too much.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think my fear is like, how do you sift through the BS versus like an opinion? And it's like, that's a tough place to have to delineate sometimes. It's like, maybe it's just a strong opinion, and maybe it is not necessarily BS, but that's where it's like, I try to consume as much side of it as possible with whatever it is. And that's part of the reason why I deleted social media. It's like, you see some of these kids making millions of dollars, and they're like, it's like, well, why can't I do that?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, then you start doing 1,000 things. It's like, oh, it's like, that's not real. I mean, some of it probably is.
And it's like, do you want it? Do you want it? Like, I had a conversation about Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
And like, Would I want that guy's life? No, I wouldn't.
Yeah.
To not be able to walk to
It's
a
like the
grocery
famous,
store.
it's a famous conversation. Like, do you want to be famous? It's like, I mean, you get regular just things stripped away from you. So
Normalcy.
yeah, and that's like, I'm sure that's, yes, there's some good stuff that comes along with it, but like, you really want that gone?
Yeah.
Like, you want to go to the, get some coffee and not have 1,000 people taking a photo of you? That's got to be exhausting.
Yeah. And then the pressure, when does it stop? Like the poor guy.
You're
like
scrutinized.
I think about all those people. I think about, it's just, especially at that age, it's so young. It's so young.
Yeah,
it's not. And again, talking about like things being stripped away from you, like a youth, a pressure. Like that's why I love, one of my favorite examples is Dave Chappelle. He ran away from it all.
Yep.
And it ended up working out.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I mean, there's just so many ways you could do something, and it's like you don't have to, follow the strict mold that this person did or that person, or just like historically something worked. And I think that's kind of if people are ready to make that leap, you might as well go for it.
Yeah.
But like, even being in the limelight of like, I'm pretty sure I saw something he like didn't cure, but like he helped a bunch of people with vision.
Yes.
And then people like yelled at him.
Yeah.
Because he didn't do more. It's like, oof.
And it's like exposing, and I feel all over the place about those arguments because I do see it for like, what does he want to do good? And that's the thing, is like you have to juggle different ideas in your head at the same time and understand all sides. The thing is, what does he want to do? He does want to help people. What's the other thing he wants to do? He wants to make money. As much of it as possible. Why does he change his thumbnail 1,000 times so that he can make more money, so that he can get more attention, so that he can have more watch time?
And everybody would do that. That's the funny thing.
And that's the thing, is that's what society's built to do. In order to help more people, he's got to do more of this. And you get to a point where I pray for the guy, because like I would, at some point you max out, and at some point you have, and that's again always been one of my fears too, is those kinds of people. The kinds of people where it's everybody loves them. That is scary. Yeah. Because that's not true. Humans aren't built to have that much attention. I saw Andre 3000, I think, talking about it the other day on some clip. Like, you're not supposed to be that beloved. You're not supposed to. We're not wired as like these, I always say, like, to just meat bags walking around like with this weird thing of consciousness.
Yeah.
Who knows what the fuck that is?
Who knows what it is? It is something.
But you're not supposed to be seen that much. You're not supposed to be acknowledged that much. You're not supposed to be loved that much, because there's a balance.
Yeah, because it gets back to, you're just going to be tapped out, and you're not going to have, nothing's going to give you, like, at what point are you going to get joy or a dopamine release or whatever it is, to where it's like you're going to experience, all of these, good things that come from different things. And I think that's the fear.
When you have access to whatever you want, whenever you want, like that's, again, it sounds great, but is it? And like, that's why we play the game. Like that's why. And
that's why I think I've started to enjoy my job a lot more. It's like, yeah, everybody wants more money, but like, if I take a step back and just go, you know what? It's a blessing that I get to help whoever I can, whenever I can, learn while I'm doing it, enjoy while I'm doing it, and just say, this is what it is. Like, I don't want to do anything more. I don't want to do anything less. And just kind of be in the moment of like just consuming knowledge from like all the incredible specialists I work with, and all the, senior doctors that I work with, the mentors that I've had coming up, and just formulate my own way of practicing. But also like being there for, the veterinary community is small. And like, at least with my own hospital, I see some of our techs burn out, and they see all this stuff, and I'm just like, I try to be there for that. Like, it's just like, we all need somebody.
Yeah. And to hear other people, that's why like I'm excited kind of, if you were able to give somebody, 10 years younger than you getting into this field advice, what would that be? Like, in reflecting on what you've learned, and again, from the people that you've learned from, what is something, whether it's one piece or one thing that maybe you didn't think about at that age, but you learned and you would pass on?
I think maybe a couple things just kind of right off the bat. Like, one, I would probably tell myself, you're capable more than you probably think. I still, like, the other doctors kind of joke, like, they're like, you need to be confident in your decisions. And I'm always confident when I talk to the like clients and owners, but like when I'm conversing with some of my peers and some of these incredibly smart people and just these amazing doctors, I'm like, I shouldn't even be in the room with these people. And then it's like, you hear some stories like I'll get a review or a couple of reviews, or I'll get somebody that buys us something or gives me a card, or like, you know, I get an animal out that the owners thought was, you know, not going to make it or something like that. It's like in those moments, you know, there's definitely some times where I have to be better at like with these crazy shifts. I'm like, you just did a really good job. Like there's sometimes right as I'm walking to my car through that parking lot, I'm like, good job. And like that moment, I'm like, that's worth it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so I would just say, it's easy to say now. It's like, just be you. Like, don't try to be cool. Don't do what's cool. Do whatever makes you happy. And I think, you know, that's super cliche. You know, it's just like, if you want to help somebody, great. Like, if it's just do what you want to do and stop thinking about everybody else's opinion, because they're going to have it regardless.
Yeah.
And you could be the best person in the world. There's still going to be people that hate you. And just surround yourself with like-minded people, surround yourself with a good support system, and you're ready to roll. You can do whatever you want to do. And I think that's where I'm lucky, you know, and I mean, whether it's at home, whether it's Alexis, whether it's my family, whether it's, you know, my colleagues that I work with, I can't complain.
Yeah.
And it's like, how many people get to say that? It's not saying that I don't, you know, deal with some stuff, and life's going to punch you in the face at some point. But how can you just, you know, mentally prepare and say, you know what, this is what we're going to deal with if it happens. So yeah, it's, I think that's where I sort of just have to kind of take a step back and just tell them that, you know, if I 10 years, but just you're going to be okay. You're going to get through it. Like all those nights where you thought you weren't going to get through it, you know, you were too stressed. You were like, I'm not cut out for this, imposter syndrome. It's like, you're going to get through all that. You're going to get through all that.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't act like I know more than I know. And I'm constantly motivated to learn as much as I can and just help whoever I can. That's really where I boil it down and simplify it. So that's at least what keeps me kind of, you know, narrow-minded. You know, it's like I try to go into work and I like to talk. I try to tell people not to call me Dr. Kent. It's like, yes, I worked hard for that degree. Yes, I worked hard for that title, but what's a title?
Yeah.
Right. And then I get people that are like, well, you know, you're not a real doctor. I'm like, okay. Like, where do you want me to say that? You're going to say that like a PhD doesn't have a doctorate?
Yeah.
They have a doctorate. They're not a medical doctor.
Yeah.
They're a doctor.
And what comes with it? It's funny because as I looked up, I was thinking about this. I was like, is Sean a doctor? And then I looked up, it was like Dr. Sean Kent. I was like, wow, that's so weird.
It's weird.
It's so weird. You're like my friend I play lacrosse with.
It's weird. And sometimes I feel like, you know, it's like I put in all that work. I, you know, obviously passed my boards and did all that other stuff and like just killed myself to get there. But it's like, there's some times where it's like, can I even do this?
Yeah.
And I know everybody kind of naturally goes through that, but it's like, I can only keep going. I can only do my best. And, you know, all of the most incredible doctors that I've worked with, they've all said they made mistakes. You can't not.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I want to do my best to make sure I don't.
I was going to say the one thing to double tap into here. We talked about all this death and all this tough stuff, but like,
sorry listeners, it's a deep podcast today.
But like, what is it like to like save a life, like an animal's life?
It's
to, like you said, there's some, you know, that were on the brink that you did something or something worked out. Like, what is that? Do you feel that high as much as you feel those lows? It just
seems like all the bad and everything you've worked for was worth it. And like, also like with, like the clients, as much as I am becoming jaded to people, and I know a lot of it's education, I got to take a step back, but it's like seeing the faces of like telling them your animal's going to be okay if they're just in pure fear, and then switch that to, you know, joy, you know, they're elated, whatever word you want to use. And it's like, if I work 60 hours in 4 days or less, it makes it all worth it.
Yeah.
Like even if it's one, and that's what I've had to come to realize with emergency. It's like, you're probably going to lose more than you save just from the sheer, they're coming in as a dumpster fire. Like, you know, whether people waited too late, they did something stupid, it's just what it's going to be. And I try not to take the emotional side away from, because it's why I've been so motivated to get to this point. So I'm like, how can I utilize my emotion, sympathizing, empathizing with the animal, because they're so pure. They are in no control. They have no idea.
Yeah.
So it's like, we are in full responsibility, owners and us, to make sure that we can do whatever we can for them. So when I can fully do that for somebody, I'm like, who's next?
Yeah.
Right. It's like, you know, again, it's like, and you never know what's going to come in the door. You know, it's like, I've seen some wild stuff. I'm like, that wasn't in the textbook.
Yeah.
Like that. They didn't prepare you for that.
Life experience.
100%. And that's where, again, it just, you know, there's such an incredible staff where I work. I've had, you know, I worked with, you know, my incredible mentors before I went to emergency. So it was like, I'm blessed that way,
Yeah.
you know, and if I need to lean on somebody, then there's always somebody there. And I've, you know, linked up with some specialists, and like I have those connections, and it's just, I'm happy with where I am. You know, it doesn't mean things aren't going to change. There's not some days where I wake up, I'm like, oh God, I got to do this again. But I mean, I get nervous going to my shifts. It's like, what's going to happen? Am I going to be able to help something? Do we have the staff? Is somebody going to yell at me? Is like, people sue us all the time.
There's things. That's the other thing. Again,
It's
back
like,
to,
they come to us and they try to sue us. And it's like, you know what? That happens everywhere.
and it's like you tried.
And
Like you're not
right.
And that's again what I hope people get out of these long form conversations is like peeling back all these layers and being like, oh wait, like we're like, it's a human being that you're dealing with on the other side of like these. And I get it. You're emotional. You're angry. Maybe you're in this tragic situation with an animal, a pet, somebody that was within, like, you know, a part of your family, but you're trying, and you're not like you're not in, like you said, like you're clearly not in it for the money. You're not like, you know, people are doing what they can.
Like, and it's just a crazy dynamic to me that it's just like, and I think it gets back to like, people just don't put themselves in other people's shoes. And I'm not saying like a lot of like the people that come in the door are mean or can't do anything. We have so many awesome clients and people that are just amazing. They're ready to do whatever they want, you know, and want us to do in order to save the animal or treat the animal. So it's like, I do see a lot of that, but it's just those ones that stick with you that like, they come in freaking out, threatening to be combative, abusive, threatening to sue. And it's like, dude, you came to us.
Yeah.
Like, why and then you start having to deal with that. And then like, you're worried about them going to the medical board, and then you're worried about this, that, and the other. And then your name gets slandered, and it happens all over social media.
Damn.
I mean, it like seeing really good veterinarians having to go through that when they genuinely didn't make a mistake. And these people think that they like know medicine, or they know what happened, or whatever it is. It's like,
because they're in this heightened state of emotions where
it just aggravates me. And it's like, I can't control that. And all I can do is, and that's why I give people options. I'm not going to force you to do anything. I'm going to offer the best thing for you, or at least what I think is, but I'm also not going to force you to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's the challenging part that I've had to realize. It's like, it's not about the medicine anymore. Sometimes it's like, what can you do? And what is the best version of that? And oftentimes it's like, this isn't going to work.
Yeah.
And it sucks, because that's not why you get it. That's not why you get into vet med.
Yeah.
Or at least you're naive to think that that's not what's going on.
So last question, you know, if you're looking 20 years back, I look at all of these conversations as taking a kind of a snapshot of your life at a moment in time. And again, thinking about, you know, future kids, things that you want to do, goals that you have in 20 years, where do you want to be? And then kind of to have like two questions in one here. How do you want to be remembered? Your legacy, like what, even as just a, you know, as a vet, as a husband, like what do you think?
Yeah. I mean, in terms of professionally, 20 years from now, I definitely want to own hospital ownership. To me is a goal, not only financially, but I want to, it's probably way easier said than done, but creating an environment that people want to go to work to, that, you're going to have some toxicity regardless, you know, especially depending on how scaled, you know, the operation is. But I want to create an environment where people are happy to go to. It can handle, you know, a lot of these people's needs. I mean, technicians need to get more recognition. They really do. And I wish people kind of, you know, treated them better, and they're really knowledgeable. They're on the front lines. So it's like, not necessarily equality that way, because, you know, you're going to have to obviously financially figure out those numbers, but just create an environment that people are like, I like it here.
Yeah.
And like, hopefully, like, whether it's just, you know, ownership or administration, whatever, you know, it lines up to be, it's like they have your employees' backs. That's what the environment I want to ultimately kind of create. It's like, we're giving them what they deserve. Everything makes sense. It's not like I want to make as much money as possible and just like get away with whatever I can. Not that people do that, but that's sort of my goal, whether it's one or two, or going in with some of my friends, or, you know, people I meet along the way, whatever it is. And then you know, getting back to like my dad, as crazy as he was flying 2-4 times a week, he would leave that morning, fly wherever, then fly back for our basketball or cross games. Yeah. So it's like, I want to be in a position where I don't miss any of that. Like, I'm not saying I'm going to be at every single one, but like, I want to be in a position where it's like, if I shut it down because my son or, you know, daughter has a game or play or whatever it is, it's like, I want to be able to do that because that's what my dad and my mom did.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like, even when we played at Altoona, we played basketball, we were playing Shenandoah, like in Virginia. And like, we were freshmen, like we were getting garbage time. And my dad and my grandfather showed up. I'm like, Dad, we're not going to play, dude. Like, and he's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And it's like just that kind of stuff where I'm like, I want to be able to do that. I want to be able to provide for, you know, Alexis and our future family. And then I kind of, you know, just want to be able to emulate what my parents did, you know, create an environment, like, you know, structure things where they're going to grow and not baby them and shelter them. I know that's going to be, you know, from the outside's perspective, but, and then you really just, you know, grow with Alexis and create, you know, this foundation and say, you know what, we're a team, we're going to do this. And then, I guess legacy of just helping people and, you know, realizing that if anybody needs any help, let me know.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm the guy to do it, but I will try and figure it out. And just kind of hopefully that's enough to say, you know what, he treated, you know, animals with the best he could. He treated his clients the best he could. If I own a hospital, he treated his employees as best he could. And I was just there for my family.
Yeah.
That's kind of boiling it down, simplifying it as best I can.
Yeah.
And then, you know, hopefully taking care of myself along the way.
Yeah.
Because I think people lose that as well.
That's what we don't like. We still, and we won't understand that until we do have kids. Like,
yeah,
what happens then? There's like such a shift in your consciousness and understanding. And again, like this, you know, striving to be immortal, then you live on with like through your kids and for your kids, and it becomes different, and it becomes you. I can't imagine what it's going to feel like. Shout out like my future kids.
I know it's gonna be crazy.
Like you have a part of you that's living on in, and that's when I think back and I'm like, all these things, when you think about your parents, when you think about the way that you grew up, when you think about all these things, you don't think about the fact that you are them.
Oh yeah.
You are a collection of their genes, of their environment, of the things that happened to them, their traumas, their highs, their lows, all of that. You're a collection of them, and two of them who aren't blood related, and then create a, you know, it's
definitely nuts. Cause like sometimes like my dad is so good at not debating, but like arguing and always winning arguments. And I'm just like, then I start like figuring out how he does that. And I started doing that. I'm like,
yeah,
whoa.
That's the part that was a scary realization for myself.
Oh my God.
When I was like, oh shit.
Drives my mom nuts.
Yeah. I'm like, oh wait, I am definitely,
Yeah.
It's all those things I didn't like that.
Yeah. And I'm just like, this is crazy. And you start not even realizing it. And then sometimes you get to the realization, I'm like, whoa.
Yeah.
But then also, you know, kind of branching out into your own person.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, that's, I think the unique thing is like nobody else in my family is medical at all. You know? So it's like, I get to kind of pave that own way.
Exactly.
And like whether my kids want to be veterinarian or not, just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah. It's like you start 50-50 and then you start filling up your tank with the things that you're interested in and passionate about. And then it's a combination of all those things. And like you said, creating your own. And then
I think I might just try, you know, and just kind of sort of figure out how, you know, my parents did it, and just, you know, obviously being there whenever needed. And then at the same time, kind of, you know, let you go through some stuff. Cause if you don't, you're going to run into some problems. And like, if you don't get smacked in the face with whatever it is, it's like, if that happens, how are you going to deal with that?
That's gotta be the hardest thing. I haven't been able to have anybody in here yet to talk about, parenting on a deep level yet, but I can't imagine, because it's like, as much as you want to protect your kids, you also want them to face life's challenges, and
I don't know how I'm going to
deal with them. Yeah.
All I know is they're going to Penn State. That's all I know. That's all I know.
There we go.
Whether they like it or not,
there we go.
And Alexis is on board, I'm pretty sure.
That's too funny. Well, dude, thank you so much for coming in today.
Yeah, man. This was fun. Thanks for having me.
Letting us know about your world, because it's something that I was, again, from
be a little nicer to the veterinary professional. Not most people are. But you know, it's definitely tough. You know, again, we're everyone's doing their best. We're a little burnout. You know, we're short staffed everywhere, but everyone's giving it, you know, as much as they can. So, and then if, you know, the other thing is, I always get people that contact me that I haven't talked to in 10 years about like, what do I do with this? It's like, I can't give you that advice. Yeah. You know, and that's the hard part. So like, if you do text somebody that's a vet, they're not doing it because they don't want to help. It's actually like illegal, and it's a hard place to be, because if something were to happen. Oh, when somebody asks you about. Yeah. I get I'll get like, before I deleted Instagram, I'll get people that like I haven't even talked to, barely even talked to in high school. They're like, hey, my friend's, you know, secretary's dog is doing this, you know, what do you, what should we do? It's like, I'm not going to tell you. And you're not allowed. Yeah. So it's like just stuff like that. Like most people, like it's not, and everyone that's close to me, more than happy to help you in any way that I can. Sometimes I'm not going to give you like, you know, an answer that you want, but don't, you know, I know the people that are more abusing it versus using it.
And I imagine
so don't be afraid if you're, you know me and you want to text me and stuff like that. But at the same time, you're not going to just text your, friend who's a physician.
Yeah.
Like, what do I do? It's like, that's not how
there's only so much.
That's not how that's going to work, so, but yeah, man, this was awesome. This was really fun. And what you're doing here is pretty special, so keep going.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see the ride.
I'm pumped. So thank you so much. And let's get back outside.
Yeah. Let's do it.
Good to see you.
You too, bro.